Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March workshop meeting of the Town of Rochester Planning Board. Ask you to stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And ask the town clerk to do the roll call, please.
Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Anawan are here. Councilman Paddock.
Here.
Councilman Smith here. Supervisor Davis.
Here. Okay, also present is attorney for the town, Christiana, via virtual. The first agenda item is the acceptance of the agenda. I'm going to make an amendment to this. The town board accepts the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor with the addition of a resolution for employment purposes, the addition of a discussion on the ZRC recommendations to the town board, and we'll be adding the executive session that's proposed at the end. We'll also be adding a second item for matters leading to the employment of a particular person.
I'll make that motion.
Yep. Okay, I have motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, the first resolution is from Councilwoman Anawan. It is in your packet. The packet should be somewhat in order. This is as presented by Councilwoman Anawan. Town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the update to the elder care program sign-up form to include the statement. Please check here if you would like to receive information about additional programs offered through the town of Rochester. Examples include meal delivery through the Rochester Food Pantry and programs through the Recreation Department. So I have that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
There's some discussion about the wording.
Okay, I took it from your example, so we
Yes.
can always amend.
Yeah. So I had, I wanted Mary Lou to comment. I corresponded with Rich Miller, our lead constable, who advised specific wording as well. So I had asked Mary Lou about that earlier.
Okay.
But basically, his was to take out the examples, that way people don't feel like if we go outside of that we would be violating.
I think that's a good suggestion.
And then also,
I'm sorry, can you explain that?
oh, just that, like, if we were to send information about other programs, that by only listing two, it might just cause confusion, that there might be this expectation that that's the only thing they're signing up for, as opposed to.
Like when we were during COVID, when we were a vaccination station, we could use this information for that, although it wasn't specifically mentioned here. That would be a good use of that, but if we didn't mention it, so he said, why just send the information?
Yeah, it does say example, but Mary Lou, why don't we hear what you have to say, since you're the deciding factor in this?
I just think that you have to make it clear on this form that if they check that box saying they want information about other programs, they have to realize that their contact information may be given to other departments, or, you know, like the food pantry, for example, isn't even a town department.
Right, so should we add, say, please check here if you'd like to receive information about additional programs offered through the town of Rochester and its partners.
Yeah, I had sent language to you and Aaron earlier in the week.
Yes.
Yeah, what I saw just said,
Other
I didn't
than-
see exact language. What I saw was just.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you just have to have their
Right.
consent to give out their.
Right. So
their
that's what I was
information.
gonna add after we say in partners, say, by checking this box, your information will be shared.
You're
with other
consenting to
departments.
sharing your
Yeah.
contact information with these agencies and partners or something like that. That would be fine. Another alternative you can do is you can say there may be other programs being offered through the food pantry, through recreation department, and you can give them the numbers or the emails to get put on a list there. But that's a lot because you could.
That sort of is defeating the purpose, because the goal of this is so we reach out to them, not make them reach out to us. So.
Well, it would only be reaching out to be put on a list
Yeah,
with
but
whatever
they-
departments you want them, in case anybody doesn't want everyone to know.
Well, I think there's a distinction between adding them to like an email list and actually giving out the full information that they provide to other organizations.
Right.
Which are we proposing?
Well,
Their
we're proposing the second, because the elder care program are people who are not necessarily computer literate.
Right.
They are not people who would probably reach out. The reason the elder care program exists is for us to check on them. But if somebody were to call them and say, hey, we have this program, they would probably be more receptive to say, yes, we'd like to sign up for it, than if we leave it to them to contact us. So I think the purpose of this, the whole purpose of this edition is so we can increase our list. Right now, the people that are in the elder care program, we can't share it with the recreation department. We can't share it with the food pantry. So this is getting their consent to share their information. So if we worded
Wow.
to say, we're sharing your information by checking this box for other town of Rochester programs.
That's what I think you said. We're not saying share the information, we're saying if you'd like to receive information.
Well, what I was trying to propose was adding the next sentence, so I say, by checking this box, your information will be shared.
Okay.
That's what I was, but if you want us to table it, Aaron, and you want to work on it, bring it back at the April meeting, and I mean, it's not time sensitive, is it?
I mean, only in that there's energy around it.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's concern that if the wording is in a particular way, that might be off-putting to.
Yeah.
I think saying sharing their information, if we're supposed to give them, if it's how it's received now, at least by me, is that we're offering to send them information about these programs, up to them if they want to contact our contact for the elder care to sign
But
up.
that's not the intention of
And
this adding
do
this
we have a
box.
confidentiality clause in our elder care program for the people in it, because that's the only thing I'm worried about it breaking.
Well,
No, and
Giving out
that's
their
what this,
information, yeah.
this is the form to be part of the elder care program. So that's why we're adding this. So, because we can't share their information right now.
I mean, we could workshop this, so I think the simpler the better. You do what you're saying, remove the specific examples. And then add
But I don't think we should just say receive information. I almost think we should take that out and
Right.
say, by checking this box,
Your information
your
will be shared.
contact info, and say contact information,
Right.
because it's just, or even say your phone number, because that's all we pretty much have for these people, the
And-
phone number.
Yeah, I think one thing we sort of have discussed is that it would be best if what we're talking about, was actually only coming from a single department, the recreation department, that we wouldn't necessarily be sharing information with 3 different town.
Yeah, but I could see that in future, there would be others. So like, even if the recreation department gets it, we can't give it to the food pantry unless, so I think Mary Lou's point is we shouldn't say just the recreation department.
Right.
But I think instead of saying receive
Please check
information,
your,
but
you
you know, please check
consent.
here if you consent to your phone number being shared the town of,
I do think you're gonna have to put some sort of an example in here because you're gonna have people thinking, who are they sharing this with? Are they sharing?
Yeah,
it with the
that's gonna
county?
be-
well,
Are
and
they
that's,
sharing
but
it
that's what I'm
with-
trying to,
That's the
that's
concern.
what I'm trying to clarify
Yeah.
right now. Because we don't want to limit ourselves.
But we also don't want to imply that we're gonna be sharing with the
Because-
county.
Right, because like, I'll give you an example. When we did the Project Resilience, we couldn't, the town supervisor or Kate couldn't reach out to them. We would have had to have had the recreation department reach out to them. So I don't want it to just be one
Should,
department.
well, should I maybe
Or it could
do a
be the-
meeting with myself and Rich Miller and the recreation
I
department?
think it's getting too complicated,
Yeah.
to be honest. I think you and Mary Lou should just brainstorm, come up with the wording and bring it back to us, and then, because I want it to cover more than just the recreation department. I understand that's the goal right now
Right
at this
now,
moment,
right.
but I see its usefulness other places.
Yeah,
But I also hear Kate's point,
right.
that,
Yeah, and that's
That
the
will-
concern,
yeah.
is that this,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
word agency sounds way bigger.
well, that's why don't you guys, we got 2.5 weeks till the next meeting.
Okay.
15, or 2 weeks, 15 days.
Okay,
No, that's the 31st. We got 3 weeks. till
yeah,
the next
Maybe.
Mary,
meeting.
we'll just have a phone call ahead of the.
Yeah, that's
next
fine.
meeting.
Yeah, rather than try to,
We could do it if you want. It's a quick.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, we do have the special meeting. The
Yeah.
audit meeting, the other meeting is literally just the bills.
Okay,
But we do have the public hearings. We don't know how long they're gonna take.
okay, so I'd like to motion to table,
You don't have to.
we don't have to.
You
because
can
we
just take
didn't-
no action.
too much. Okay. But, yes, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, actually,
That would
yeah,
be
I'm
great.
sure Charlotte.
Well,
would
that
help
was
you.
why,
Get
That's
that
why-
wording right, so that it doesn't deter
Yeah.
people where it makes it more inclusive and but something
Yes.
they want to do, then be like, I don't want my information.
exactly,
shared.
that's what,
I'm
that's
happy to figure
the,
out wording.
She may have an example.
yeah, that would be
So,
great.
I might have something from the pantry.
Okay, and then we
Okay.
will run it by Mary Lou.
That
yes,
sounds good to me.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get bogged down with us brainstorming here and deciding later, oops, we need to do this, so.
Thank you, everyone.
No problem. Thank you for bringing it up. The next is a sort of discussion resolution section. Let me just sort of get the sort of temperature of the board. Do you want me to explain it before we make the resolution, or do we want to make the resolution, discuss it, and then more than likely amend it? So.
We can talk.
I think,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted, because it's trying to follow our procedures. So what this is Mary Lou has identified the steps we need to do the ambulance improvement districts, which would be, give us the ability to create independent taxing districts, one for Cohocton Accord, one for Marpletown First Aid for 2023. We need to get started sooner rather than later, because both sections we do are subject to permissive referendum, which could potentially take as long as 4 months. Because if we get a request of permissive referendum, then we have to schedule the vote between 60 to 75 days. We have to wait 30 days for the permissive referendum. So I want to get started sooner rather than later. Michael and I have secured from the county EMS what's called a shape file. So Michael can confidently plot the current districts, which is what we're obligated to follow, because there is a memorandum of agreement between those districts, those agencies, and the county. This is the area we cover. Mary Lou, we're going to have to decide how to handle it. Some of those lines split parcels. I'm going to ask you to maybe do a little research on how we handle that in terms of how we assign value. If there's a parcel that's divided in 2 districts, I don't quite know how we handle that, but
Okay,
I was talking to Mike earlier, and I think, we can see where the dwelling is, if you want to base it off where the dwelling is and where
Yeah, but
the
in
road.
but in terms of the value, we have to figure out percentage or something. So,
yeah, and I'll do
We
some
can't
research
arbitrarily
to see
make
if there's ever been a decision made on that.
Yeah, So I just
Okay.
wanted to give you the heads up. We know at least, well, we know in the Marbletown district it's going to occur, so it's occurring in Marbletown. It's also going to occur in the Cohasset district.
By default,
because-
right?
By default. What this first,
And Ellenville.
no.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, I think the parcel is New York State.
Yeah. So we discovered that most of Yeagerville is covered by Ellenville. We are not proposing doing a district for that area at this point. They have not requested funding. They never have. They continue to cover that area. We're only going to create the two districts, one for Marbletown, one for Cohasset. It will not encompass the entire town, but it will cover the majority of the town. My feeling is let's leave the other one alone for the moment. The majority of our town is Cohasset Accord First Name. Marbletown has been an ongoing discussion for several years. I don't think I want to form 3 ambulance districts at one time. Maybe down the road for 2024, we'll take on the other one, but. And I don't even know, do you know how the Ellenville is, it's not Ellenville, is it? Yeah, it is Ellenville. Do you know how they're funded from Wawarsing? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they're funded from Wawarsing at all.
Okay,
Maybe.
yeah, it's just not a can of worms I want to open. And right now, we don't know what's going to happen on the state level. We don't know what's going to happen on the county level. But we have to start this process now if we want to even attempt to do this for 2023, excuse me. So this first resolution, or the next 2 resolutions that we would adopt, is and stop me if I say anything wrong, Mary, appropriating an amount of money that the town will commit to preparing the map, preparing the plan, and preparing the report. The map and the report can be covered for $0. Michael is capable of making it on the map. I'm gonna take Marbletown's plan that they did last year and change the names to protect the innocent. And Mary Lou, there's no legal reason I can't take that report and make it work for Rochester. It's a public report,
Yeah,
correct?
no, if it's fine with them, it's fine with me.
Well, I mean, do I have to, I guess my question is, do I have to ask them? It's a public document. I know it was created by the
I mean,
consultant and paid for.
it- I don't know who actually,
There's a
did
name
the
associated.
report.
with
I
it.
don't know, it was adopted by the town. I don't know if the town did it or if the
No,
rescue squad.
They hired a consultant. There's a name attached to it of a firm that.
Oh, all right. Well, if they hired a consultant, I don't think you want to just take it because they paid someone to do it without talking to them about it,
Okay. I will check with them because, it's a lot of it is like zoning laws. I mean, it's somebody, oftentimes people pay a consultant and they're copied again and again and again. So I just use that as an example, but I'll follow up with them and see. The report covers everything it needs to. I'm sure there's other examples out there. We don't need to recreate the wheel and hire a consultant to essentially fill in the blanks. So the only cost I can foresee in this would be some amount of hours of Mary Lou's time to assist us in this process and review documents. I'm estimating maybe 5 to 6 hours total for each. Just based on past, I mean, if we, Mary Lou, if we set an amount and we exceed it, do we have to then redo it, or I guess my
Yeah,
question. is,
you appropriate up to an amount. So,
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
so I'd make it higher than you anticipate. You don't have to
Yeah.
use it.
I didn't want to make it too high though, where people then get
Right.
worried.
Well,
and then
I
call
don't think
for
it's going to
permits
be
for the rest.
a whole lot.
My instincts were to say 1,000 for each.
Agree,
which
that's
is, well, essentially 10, between 10 and 12 hours.
I was thinking do 1,000 for each. I can't imagine it will be more than that.
Okay.
And
And
if
it
somebody
wasn't,
wants to have a referendum, they're going to pay more in taxes for their cost of the referendum than they are for the cost of the two
And if it was more,
appropriations.
we could always pay it out of our general fund, right? Are we allowed to do that out of our authority fees or not?
The way it's written, and the monies you spend on it have to be subject to permissive referendum.
Okay,
It doesn't say if it's coming from a particular source. It says the funding has to be.
okay. But, and also for clarification, this amount is strictly for the preparing of the map, plan, and the report.
Right, this
Anything
is just
beyond
step
that-
one.
So anything beyond that is additional money that we would do another how does that work?
No, I mean, that's step one. Then that's gonna be before you, and then it's just gonna be, part of my regular billing.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
This section of law only goes to the map, the report, and whatever the other thing was.
Plan, the report, and the map.
And map and report. Yep, that's all this goes to.
Subject to permissive referendum?
No, it has to. It has to. But we have to say subject to permissive referendum,
Right.
because Kate then has to advertise. The way a permissive referendum works, if something is subject to, we adopt the resolution, hopefully this evening. Kate will then post a copy of the resolution in the newspaper. People have 30 days
30 days.
to submit a written petition to, and the number is based on 5% of the number of town of Rochester voters in the last gubernatorial election. Now, Mary Lou, with this
Yes.
referendum, because it only covered, now is this referendum for all of Rochester, or is each district, because we haven't established a district yet, we don't know who are the voters in each district.
Right. It doesn't say per district, I don't think. Let me pull up the,
So the 5% would be of the total voters.
I think
all
it's of the
town
total
Rochester.
population.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you
It's
know what?
just
I'll
devil's
double
advocate,
check
trying
it.
to
It is whatever it is. So
Okay.
if a petition comes in, we will look more
Okay.
closely to see whether we have to
So-
break it down further.
So if Kate receives a petition with signatures greater than 5% of the number of voters in the last gubernatorial election in the town of Rochester, which we would have to figure out what year that was, how many voters voted in that election. 5% of that, Kate and Mary Lou would then review all the signatures, determine it, just like on Board of Elections petitions. They would determine if they were valid or not valid. My guess is it's probably subject to legal challenge.
But what I'm asking is that just to do the appropriation right now?
Yes,
Yes.
And
yes,
then we would have to do another permissive referendum for the action?
to create the
Yes.
district.
Okay.
The end,
Correct.
after you do a
Correct.
resolution to create
So-
the district, that's
Mary Lou
subject
sent us
also.
an email that outlined steps. That's why I'm pushing to get this moving, because step
That's what I wanted.
one could potentially go 4 months. Now, that's not, since you and I are working for free, we can start work right now on it because we're not costing the town any money. We just have to go through the process of the referendum either being called for. If 30 days passes and there's no referendum, then the resolution takes effect and we can start paying Mary Lou for her time. So
That's
essentially, in
what
the
I
next 30 days, Mary Lou can't work on it until the referendum date either
Right.
passes or a vote is called for. Then we would have to schedule a vote. The people of the Rochester would vote on those two resolutions and they would either adopt it or pass or fail it. And that is scheduled 60 to 75 days after the receipt of the petition. Used to be 75 to 90. We know that. So that's where we're at. So if people are comfortable with $1,000, then I think. Any further discussion do you want to have after we make the resolution, or does anybody want to ask questions?
Only goes by 50,000 per district that we're doing, right?
Yep.
So one for the
Yep.
Rochester, one for.
Yep.
Hamilton. Okay, that's the only here.
That's what I'm planning on,
Gotcha, okay.
which would give her
Plenty of
approximately 5 to 6 hours per district.
That's totally- I just want to make sure it's per district, not per. combined.
Yeah, because each resolution has to be separate, because each resolution is its own independent action. We can do one without the other.
Gotcha.
And if people challenge one, but not the other, then we can move forward with the one and the other one has to wait for vote.
Just making sure it wasn't combined.
Do we want to ask Mary Lou if she thinks that's an appropriate amount of time? And for the higher end, not to be, chances are.
What
not-
amount of time?
Well, you're saying $1,000.
No, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
Oh, I missed.
Yeah, she said.
I can't
That's
believe
more
you
than
didn't hear the dulcet tones of Mary Lou saying that's accurate.
Fantastic.
That was the sort of the start of the dialogue.
Gotcha.
Okay, so, authorizing the supervisor to appropriate funds for an ambulance district. The recommended resolution, Town of Rochester Town Board, subject to permissive referendum, appropriates up to $1,000 from the general fund balance to pay the cost of preparing a general map, plan, and report for providing the Marbletown First Aid Unit Ambulance District. The town clerk is requested to circulate permissive referendum notice of the resolution. I'll make that motion. Second. Okay. Any other discussion? I was ready to say roll call vote. Kate, or Mary Lou, we don't have to do a roll call, do we, on a permissive referendum?
No, on bonding you do roll calls, not
Okay.
on.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, second resolution. The Town of Rochester Town Board, subject to permissive referendum, appropriates up to $1,000 from the general fund balance to pay the cost of preparing a general map, plan, and report for providing the Cohasset Accord First Aid Squad Ambulance District. The town clerk is requested to circulate permissive referendum notice of the resolution. I'll make that motion. Okay, any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Would you like this to go in the daily streaming, so we're not heavily flagged with the Shalongo?
Yes, because otherwise it wouldn't go till next Thursday.
Right.
What's the board's feeling on what edition? Is there a day of the week we would want to try to request for daily agreement? Do we think Sunday maybe has more more readers?
It definitely does.
Do you think with today being Wednesday, you think they could get it? Try this Sunday?
Yeah, they're usually 24 to 48 hour turnaround,
Okay, so
and
yeah,
we can request it for Sunday.
and I'll leave it to you, whatever the language. If you need,
Okay.
if you need anything from me, let me know. Next, and why don't we do the same, if you don't mind, if we do discussion first. So Mary Lou gave us her opinion on the fire inspection fees. I took her language and inserted it into the beginning section. The fees are still exactly the same as we had proposed for 2022. The language of the 1, 2, and 3 section, Mary Lou, you haven't seen this, I apologize. Do you want me to email it to you quickly?
Sure.
I finished this about 5:45 this afternoon, so. Apologies for the short break. Feel like we need to just pretty music. Okay, Mary Lou, on the way to you.
Open.
What I did is I inserted the 1, 2, and 3, which is from our building code section of our town code. What was proposed and what was implemented last year was not consistent with our own code. And so our code reads that fire safety and property maintenance inspections of buildings or structures which contain an area of public assembly shall be performed at least once every 12 months. Fire safety and property maintenance inspections of buildings or structures being occupied as dormitories shall be performed at least once every 12 months. And fire safety and property maintenance inspections of all multiple dwellings not included in, and I changed it to category 1 and 2 because our code says subsection A1 and A2 because it's part of, but by listing them 1, 2, and 3, I'm still following the pattern. It just saying subsection A1 wouldn't make any sense. And all non-residential building structures, uses, and occupancy not included in category 1 or 2 above shall be performed at least once every 24 months. So Mary Lou, I don't know if you want to weigh in if that's appropriate.
That
way to
works.
do it. Okay.
That
Now,
works.
two questions I have. There's area of public assembly. That is defined somewhere in state code, correct?
Yes, it is actually in, oh God, it's not in the building code. It's in
Right, because I couldn't find
whatever
it.
law. It's in whatever law authorizes the building regulations. And off the top of my head, I can't remember where
Okay.
that is. But in New
Yeah.
York state law, it says there's that 50-person cutoff. That
It's
makes
50?
it a place of
Rated- I thought it was
general
rated.
assembly.
Yeah, she said it's 50-person cutoff. So what I would propose that if the board is approving this tonight, we can say, subject to a change as agreed to by the attorney, is I would add that definition in this document. So people don't have to go searching for it, because those of us who know where to find things couldn't find it. Like, it's as usual, it's not in the code itself, it's in the enabling law for the code. Then the other question, Mary Lou, being occupied as dormitories, where do multifamily housing fall into that?
Well, multifamily housing.
I guess
isn't a
my
dorm-
question, what is the
That's-
definition of dormitory?
Sorry, wasn't ready for these questions, Mike. I can get you
Sorry.
that information to
Yeah.
add in if you'd like to add in
Okay,
the,
so
I
there
think that
is,
one is in the building code.
okay, so if the board is okay, what I would propose when we do the resolution is that we will add the definitions of the word public assembly and dormitory from the New York State Code into this fee schedule for clarification. And we'll give the source, we'll cite the source, so if it changes,
Right.
we're covered.
So the area of public assembly, I can't find the definition right now.
We looked at it.
It's used for the gathering of 50 or more persons.
Right.
Right.
So, but there's still we have the square footage cut off. So how do those two things work together?
Well, so the square footage is just the cost of, if we want to define what we're saying, businesses without sleeping quarters, the square footage, if we want to,
Okay, I got it.
That's a frequency.
what we would
I
have
got
to
it.
do is say, we would have to
Frequency versus
decide,
cost.
yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would have to say what constitutes the business. In the one example
Yes.
that prompted all this, we have a split use residential business. If Mary Lou, you would have to tell us if we can define the business as only being the portion that they say is the business, or do we have to consider the entire building? I think if it's in the same building, you kind of have to consider the entire building, because if a fire starts in the residential section, it's still the same building.
It's still a frequency versus cost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be 2 years for under 50.
Right.
Right.
1 year.
So we would define public assembly, we would define dormitory, and then the third, I don't think needs definition. So all non-residential building structures, uses and occupancies not included. So it's every 2 years if you're under 50 people. It's every 2 years if you're not occupied as a dormitory. And multiple dwellings that aren't included in either one are also every 2 years. So like Michael said, it's frequency. The fee is up to us to decide that now, if we want to change the categorization of the different fees, we can do, or elaborate on the definition of those, we can.
Right.
But we can't change the frequency from the state code and our own code, which is a copy of the state code. And we were.
Right, I think the question that you asked Mary Lou is if it's a mixed use building that has residential on one side and a business on the other. I get your point, Mike, but is the fire, and maybe no one knows the answer to this, but is the fire inspector inspecting the residential portion? Because I feel like the cost is supposed to reflect
It is,
the inspection
it is,
time itself.
it is, but I don't know how we define what's the residential section and what's the business section. Do you have any opinion on that, Mary Lou? On a multi,
I have to look at the New York State Building Code to see it, what, if anything, they say.
okay,
I'm not gonna hazard a guess.
nope, and that's okay. Well then, if that's the case, why don't we table this too? I mean, that was the point of our workshop, is to discuss, so we'll table this, we'll get those two definitions, we'll insert them, we'll find out the answer from Mary Lou on the square footage, and then we can
And-
amend it accordingly.
We're almost there.
We're close.
And the definition is in the New York State executive law,
Thank you. I remembered now.
and I will send it to you. It's section 372.
I mean, you would have to assume that, like, this happens a lot, where there's a retail space with residential space above it. It's incidental that they're owned by the same person in this specific case.
True.
This happens a lot.
True, yeah.
So you're not inspecting the residential quarter. Just because
You could have buildings though, and I don't know if we have any in Rochester, but we could have buildings where someone owns a building, the downstairs is a shop and the upstairs is an apartment.
That's kind of what Michael was just saying, the example.
Oh, I missed part of it
Yeah,
then.
but
Okay,
we
sorry.
don't, but we wouldn't inspect the upstairs apartment, would we?
So say something like the post office building would be a good example of that. You know?
Well,
Well,
no,
units
because
may
that's an
typically-
apartment complex, so
No.
it is inspected because it's an apartment complex.
But it wouldn't be considered the same, like, the post office is not paying for the inspection fee of the whole building.
No.
footprint. They're just paying. for
No.
the-
For their
for their
space. But
operation.
the apartment owner is paying for the,
Right.
or the owner of the, actually, the owner of the building. So my guess is the owner of the building is paying for all the inspections.
Right, but I'm wondering how,
Because the post office doesn't own that, they lease.
but the classification of it might be different,
Oh.
like,
Yeah,
Our two separate inspections.
Yeah.
Just when if I would work at restaurants that have apartments above them, where like the cook was in the apartment above, the apartment is separate inspection normally than a restaurant.
once you get into a rental situation,
yes, then you've got.
then you do
Yeah.
have inspections.
So if it's owner occupied, then.
Then it's owner occupied, probably not. Well, let's let Mary Lou clarify, find out, clarify, and we'll bring this back to the next meeting. But like you said, we're that much closer.
Yeah.
In the meantime, take a look at the pricings. If anybody sees anything they have great issues, concerns with, and I know, Michael, you wanted to sort of reformat it, and please have at it. I'll send you the Word document of this.
Oh, yeah, I did a version of it, and I know Aaron had some questions getting from other folks.
Yeah.
The formatting, that could be internal, though, we wouldn't have to necessarily pass that.
No, we don't have to, but I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to do it now, so as soon as we adopt this, we
Yeah.
can move it forward, so. Okay, so we're not even gonna make that resolution, we're gonna just move on to the next item. We have we got the grant for the, from the JCAP, the Justice Court. Adam and I met with Justice Laflamme, Justice Alba called in, and the two clerks. I prepared an RFP that I told the justices I would get to them by last Wednesday and did. Justice Laflamme came back with several comments, and I tweaked this in regard to her comments. One thing she feels strongly about, and I do agree, I didn't get a chance to review it. So we have on this bathroom floor plan that will become a part of the RFP. We have the existing floor plan and the proposed floor plan. The proposed is what we sent to JCAP. She would like us to not tell them how to do it because part of the RFP is they design the space. I spoke with a code enforcement officer who said, I said, what size is ADA compliant? He said, she just put that it has to be ADA compliant. You have to be able to get a wheelchair in, turn it around. There's so many different parameters that you can't say it must be X by Y dimension. He said, it's one of those, he has to look at the plan and tell you if it is or isn't. So her proposal is that we not submit this at all. What I'm going to do is take out the line here that says utility and leave this all as one box. Just have the entry area, which is necessary to get a wheelchair in. So the bathroom is not, when you enter the door into the courtroom, you're not just going directly into the bathroom, that there is a little entryway. But I'm going to just dimension that total dimension and let them design it as they see fit. It's part of the RFP, come up with a sketch plan, not a finished product, but a sketch plan and present that as part of the RFP. So I'm going to make that change, but just so you all know what the change is that you're voting on. I will be sending them the existing floor plan. I will be sending them the non-collusion. I've added a line that says, sign here, please.
We highlight it in yellow and circle it.
Yeah, so,
Sign
and
here, comma, please. That's very
yes,
polite.
yes. So I thought for a second I forgot the comma. I'm like, no. So the RFP, I just kind of will walk through it, and then if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to vote on it because I'd like to get it out sooner rather than later. We're soliciting to provide design, labor, material, and equipment for the renovation of the existing bathroom, the construction of a single ADA compliant bathroom. We're asking for the most comprehensive offering, the highest quality of service. We show the location. We're asking it to be emailed to Kate. We also say we will accept hand delivered or mailed by Thursday, April 14th. I know that's a little bit aggressive, but I'm hoping to get it out by Monday if we adopt it tonight. Kate will then, by 2 o'clock, Kate will then open them at 3 o'clock. It will be the usual best value, which is what the justices would like, and I think it's our best way to go. We strongly encourage them to do a site visit. The site visit can be scheduled by contacting the Justice Court clerks directly between 9 and 3. They're there till 4, but I didn't want people calling them like right at the last minute. So Monday through Thursday. Requests for clarifications, the usual. They are instructed to get them to me by April 1st. Then I will prepare a document that answers all of them, circulate that on April 4th. So then the timeline is there. I'm considering that maybe we, April 21st is our, what day of the week is April 21st, and why did I put that on? Okay, I think I was proposing that we have a special meeting, but now I realize that that's CBA night, so we couldn't do that. our workshop meeting that month is what?
The 20th, the day before.
Oh, okay. So maybe I just had a typo in there. I think I did. I guess my question to the board is, are you comfortable with us doing the scoring at a workshop meeting? What I would do is, once I get the RFPs, I'm gonna circulate. We have to decide who the committee is that's gonna review it. Traditionally, it's been each of the board members independently. The Justice Court, I'd like to make them one of the members, but they're gonna do it collaboratively. So there would be 6 viewers of this. So I'm gonna change that to April 20th. May,
But that's a Wednesday. And so whoever wasn't doing court night would come.
no, we would score them at home,
Oh.
just like we've done in the past. So as soon as I get them on the 14th, I will circulate them. I will make the packets, get them to you guys by the 15th. You'll have until the day of the 20th to finish and get them back to me. And then we'll publicly do our scoring on the 20th at a 14th. Is that,
Yeah, I just, if the court is going to be one of those.
they will have scored them
They'll-
and handed them in.
Oh,
They don't
okay,
have to,
won't-
they don't
yeah.
have to be, they'll already have scored it. They don't have to be present. It's the tabulation
The
of the
tabulation that we-
results.
Like the spreadsheet and the,
Yeah.
you know, that's calculating everything for us.
Yeah, I mean, we did it last time online. It's gonna be a heck of a lot easier in person than last
Yeah.
time. You guys can actually even hand them to me that night. So we could do it at the as a special meeting after the audit meeting. I would just rather get it done.
I see what when you were saying meet in person, that's the only thing I was thinking about.
No. And I guess I must have just looked at the wrong date when I did that. So May 23rd would be the anticipated approval of the contract that's anticipated. Once we award it, we would notify them. They then get to go to, prepare a contract. We get them to agree to it. Then the notice to proceed happens as soon as we approve the contract. And then we're giving them 4 months to complete the project to be done by September 30th. So the contract will be in effect for a term of 4 months. Actually, we should say commencing upon notice to proceed, not upon signature. Mary Lou, I didn't send you the changes, but you saw the basic of it.
Yes, yep.
And I incorporated most of Justice Laflamme's concerns into this, so. The expectations of the contractor would seek a fully designed and constructed ADA compliant bathroom, utility area, and storage area. That's part of Justice Laflamme's concerns. Currently, in the section, if you look at the plan, section, when you first go in the door, where it's hallway, over here are a bunch of filing cabinets. They're concerned that if they lose that space, they won't have anywhere else to move them to. So they would like, that's why I'm gonna say the bathroom area and utility area, I'm not gonna identify, it's just gonna be utility, storage, and bathroom. Perhaps the bathroom doesn't need to be this big, the utility could move over to here, and this could still be storage. We're gonna leave that up to people to decide how best to do it. The proposal has to be the goods and services for the material, the labor, tools, equipment, appliances, transportation, and everything. For a complete functioning structure. Here's the list of the preliminary scope, the development and design, the construction drawings, demo the existing interior walls, demo exterior walls, demo the studs, demo existing flooring, subfloor to expose existing structure, demo existing electrical, mechanical, plumbing, review and support frame flooring structure. This whole list came from the gentleman who gave us the estimate that we based the grant on. Frame new interior walls, inclusive of insulation, sheetrock paint, insulated sheetrock exterior walls inclusive of painting, new subfloor, new flooring and subfloor, new doors, frames, hardware to meet ADA requirements, new ADA bathroom accessories. I'm going to leave the mirror in for the moment. There's some question of whether we can actually have a mirror in there or not. You can have a glued on mirror. You can't have anything that somebody could crack and then make a weapon out of the mirror. So, and I'm even wondering if we even need a mirror in a bathroom. It's only going to be used when the court is in session. You know, we probably don't really need a mirror in there.
Lawyers in there trying to look pretty for the court.
There you go.
I was gonna say, what do you mean?
Plumbing, new heating source, new electrical. The water filtration is sort of a to be determined whether we can relocate the existing, whether it needs to be totally replaced. It is a severely water challenged area in terms of both quantity and quality. It is not potable, but it is used for the bathrooms. And that water system feeds the bathrooms in the annex. So we have to make sure we have enough supply and quality. The response requirements are our standard response requirements. I won't go through them all, but they have to meet building and fire code, and they have to meet ADA requirements.
Do we need to include anything about the condition that we decide at the end of the day, such as it's going to be a working space to make sure?
I think we can do that in our contract as opposed to in this. The contract will get more into the details of things like that. This is just on the proposal itself, but yes, that's a really good. Essentially, that area is going to be closed off throughout this. To follow up on that, Adam, we did talk with the judges. The other bathroom can be used in the annex. We still have to make sure that those are still functional while they're doing this, and we have to work with the contractor to make sure that that happens. We may need to bring in a third constable on those nights to monitor that area, because the two constables have to stay in. And we don't even know that it has to be a constable. It could be, it's sort of a situation we'll tackle when we get to the actual details of it. But that bathroom can be utilized, is the good news. We don't have to rent a system and put a trailer outside that would triple the price of this project. The insurance requirement is our standard insurance, and Mary Lou, I did confirm it with Dwight. He is still fine with those numbers. The proposal format, they have to sign the signature page, and I may have forgotten to include the signature page, and I believe I did, and I will make sure to add it. There's a page that is basically where they fill in their information about their firm, and they sign it, and I think I forgot to include it in this packet, but it's just a form for them to fill out. Prevailing wage, any New York State municipal project must follow prevailing wage. We're asking for a total cost for the design, plan, material, labor. The summary is going to be broken down into 5 parts. They talk about how they differentiate themselves. We want a conceptual plan of how they're going to do this, how their firm would do it. Timeline is very important to the justices and to us. We want to make sure that it's a realistic timeline. We're asking for a design sketch plan, not a detailed drawing, just a line drawing, kind of like what I did. My drawing took me all of about 15 minutes to do. And if they're going to subcontract anything, we need to know what they're going to subcontract. We don't necessarily need to know who the subcontractors are, but what they are. Qualification statement would be our standard. Tell us about your business, name of the lead person, people who would be assigned to it. We're asking for 3 past or current clients, a brief description, identification. Actually, we are asking for the name of any subcontractor and any other relevant information. Then the section about it has to comply with law. We're encouraging use of sustainable products. The non-collusion statement, again, beat them over the head with it. The evaluation, we would do the best value system. It would be broken down into the completeness, the qualifications and past experience, the schedule, the sketch plan, and the quote. We'll tabulate it, and Michael and Charlotte, I know you haven't done this yet, but basically I'll give you a form that shows this is the maximum points for this category. Fill in your number of points. We add them all up, we average it out, and that's how it goes. So, yeah. For this, I'm making it a 60-40 because I think price and quality are pretty equal. Sometimes price is less important and the qualifications of the vendor. So I scored this somewhat closer. At the end of our process, we can choose to interview whatever we decide, depending on how many proposals we get. We could say we're going to interview top 3, top 5, or we could say we have one clear winner. We're going to offer the contract to them. The responsive score would be 60. The price score would be 40. We would add 10 points, potential 10 points of bonus, and there's some criteria for that. The maximum total is 100 with 10 possible bonus points added. It's a 3-to-2 ratio. We can eliminate proposals that we think are just totally unacceptable. We don't have to, we have a full ability to do that. And we also will determine that they all comply with the RFP. Adam can tell you, when we did one RFP, we had a whole bunch of people that didn't sign the non-collusion statement, and if you didn't sign it, you were rejected. And we had some good ones.
Like 6 out of 22. And
Yeah,
there was
and
some good
6 out of 22, we just had to reject it. Didn't follow directions. We will then score it for further consideration. So the minimum responsiveness, we independently evaluate the scoring. Basically, you'll take the proposals home, you'll score it, you'll bring them back to a board meeting or present them to me. They will, when we do review them, you'll be not named, but it'll be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the proposals will be numbered. So it's totally anonymous. The only person who knows which one is which will be me, because I'll be making the forms. That's the only person who will even know which board member scored which. I mean, obviously you'll recognize your own, but we each will score them separately. And we're asking them for references. Feel free on your own while you're scoring to reach directly out to the references. We will not be doing a town-wide check of references unless we decide to before we award contract. And then the average of the individual scores will make the responsive score. This is a little arbitrary, but we usually pick a number that anybody who scores less, that we just reject and we don't bother scoring them. I made it 30, which is 50%. I know that's pretty low, but it seems like if you're that low, I think you should be rejected. It's hard to estimate how we're going to score it.
Right.
We each are going to get our own biases and our own scoring system. I mean, some people are going to score a lot of high scores and just a few points off. Bear in mind that when you're scoring the proposals, it's against the criteria, not against each other. So you could potentially say every one of these has met the criteria adequately and give them all a 60. But that's up to you. But you're not comparing them against each other. You're looking at one proposal and scoring it, looking at the next and scoring it.
Fractional points to the 10.
That's up to you. We've been doing it into single points.
All
right. Adam had the best description, and I can't repeat it. Maybe you can say how you did your score.
I'm just saying, it's more like Olympic ice skating. You know, if you want your vote to be valued, you might only take off, 1 point. So you have a a 60, a 59, a 58, you know, and that way your opinion, you know, has more weight than if you said, you know, this one's a 59, this one's a 49, this one's a 39, because then in the overall context, your score, your opinion doesn't carry as much weight.
Thank you, because I can never quite put it that way, but I like your analogy. These are the 4 criteria. I figured the comprehensiveness and the quality of the proposal, you know, what did they tell us? How did they tell us? That's the most important. So that'll get 20 points. Qualifications and their past examples, that's important enough. So we give that a 15. Timeline, I think, is very important to the judges. We want this done by September because we want to apply for more money for next year. And the deadline for application is October. So that would be 15. The design sketch is kind of a moving target. It's just an idea of what are their ideas. To me, it's a little less important, but Justice will, originally I didn't have it in here. I had each of the first 3 at 20. Justice LaFlamme really wants to see their sketches, and I can agree that it's important. So I made that 10 points. So that's my proposal. Anybody have any thoughts on changing that in any way? Questions?
For the chart or overall?
Just for those. I'm kind of working my way through, and then we'll get to, but does that seem to work?
Good.
Okay. Then the way we do the prices, we basically put all the prices together. We take the lowest price and the bidder's price. We divide the 2 together to create a percentage. And then you multiply by 40, which is the maximum. So the lowest bidder is going to get a 40 points. They're going to be their price over their price, which is going to come out to 1 divided by 40 or times 40. If the next price is only $1,000 under, then they're going to maybe get 39. If somebody else is, or $1,000 over, excuse me. Somebody is $20,000 over, well, then their price is going to be pretty low. And if they have a really good proposal in a medium price, and I can tell you, like when we did our IT provider, we didn't get the cheapest one. We didn't get the most expensive one. We got one pretty much kind of right in the middle. And because they knocked it out of the park with their proposal, their price was good, but not great. They were probably in the like the 4th or 5th
Yeah.
cheapest, but it was the best proposal. And that's the purpose of this best value.
It's no one person's opinion. It's
Right.
collectively, we all thought that.
Yep. And you can't get more independent than the way we're doing it. And I will ask, do it independent. Don't talk to each other about it. Don't say, hey, what do you think about this company? Do it completely independent, and that's how it works. The bonus points, if they are an MWBE certified vendor, if they're a veteran-owned vendor, or if they're a local vendor from Ulster County or contiguous county, we've done that in the past. I don't know if we still want to include the contiguous county or we want to just keep it Ulster County. We want to say local vendor from town of Rochester. Obviously, the 10 points bonus points is at our own discretion. Each of us can award it as we choose to. So if somebody was in Cohasset, you could choose to give them more bonus points, or if they were in Meworthing or Marbletown, than if they're in Poughkeepsie. So I think, and this is only, the bonus points is at each person's discretion. It's not a set number, it's just up to 10 if they meet any of those criteria. And it's how that feels of
I see what you're
importance
saying,
to
like,
you.
you could, as an individual, give a Cohasset vendor more points than you would a vendor.
Right.
Like if you're giving out bonus
Right.
points.
But if they don't meet any of these categories, they get
Then
no
none
bonus.
of them.
They have to meet these categories, but the value of it is up to each of us as an individual
If they only,
scorer.
but if they only check one of the boxes, you can still award up to 10 points.
You could,
But if they checked all 3 boxes, it's very unusual,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
Business, but still.
yeah.
only
And there, I
qualify
think
for
it's your own discretion. If they've only checked one box, my feeling is, maybe I'll give them 3 points.
Yeah.
If that's, but I don't want to, the fact that it's a bonus point, it just to bring them up a little bit higher. Maybe 10 points is too much, but I think it works. We want to encourage veteran-owned. We want to encourage the MWBE companies. The state would like us to encourage them. It is state money we're using. And the local vendors is something that we called out in our procurement policy of working within Ulster County or surrounding counties as much as possible. For a contractor like this, I don't know if the contiguous county is necessary. You know,
Yeah.
for some of our projects, it is necessary because
The only reason I would say keep it contiguous, but if they're, down in, Orange County, but it's like, Mammoth or something, it's only 30 minutes away. It's
Yeah.
not, that would be closer than, somebody coming from,
and it's a bonus point situation. And if it gets down to where the bonus points make the difference in the scoring, we always can call them in for an interview. We're not obligated to offer it to the highest point one. We're just obligated to use a fair system of discretion, determine what we want to do, and then award the contract. Then it's truly the best value. We've had a lot of compliments on how we're doing this. Chris Hewitt is trying to get the county to copy it. So, and then the alternate evaluation, if we just get 3 or fewer proposals, if we don't get any, then we can throw this all out the window and just come up with our own system.
Build it ourselves.
So I have one small
We'll do it on the
comment.
weekend.
Yep. Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry. So the back of I'm asking them to sort of identify their pricing. This is based somewhat off of the original pricing that we got from the original quote. So the labor is in total man hours and how much they're going to charge per man hour. Those are the general headings of categories that he had. The materials is your standard materials, and then there's always the or other. And then the lump sum, oftentimes plumbing, maybe they might contract it out to somebody else. Maybe this contractor doesn't do plumbing. That's often, all that stuff is in. And the O&P, the overhead and profit, is usually a percentage that is added onto a job of, I expect to make, this is what it's going to cost me to do it. I'm expecting 15% profit. So they would calculate that a number based on their proposal to come out with a total number. But I tried to leave lots of wiggle room so they could amend it as need be. But this is just a starting template. So we're judging apples to apples kind of situation. Okay, now.
So back on page 2, you called out that just thought it was important not to lose this storage area, and that's file storage.
Yep.
So that's the only place it's mentioned. So I would recommend adding, and that's not inside the bathroom.
Well, it will be on this. When I say proposed bathroom floor plan, I'm going to remove and I'm going to say storage, utility, and ADA
Okay.
bathroom.
Yeah,
Proposed area.
I was gonna
TBD.
recommend that you label on the existing bathroom floor plan where their current storage is.
No problem.
So that
That's
it's
a good
clear
idea.
what we're talking
Yep,
about.
yep.
Because storage could mean bathroom supply storage. I just don't want there to be any confusion.
All right, file storage, how's that? And I'll change the word from storage here to file storage. I didn't want to confuse that they think it has to be like fireproof. I
Right.
mean, it has to be fireproof, but specifically for record retention, because those facilities have a very different set of standards.
That was it.
Okay,
So should we just say port storage instead of file storage?
how about record storage? Court record storage.
It just sounded.
Old
Yeah.
court record store.
Well, and I did ask how much we really need to keep. So, and I did suggest they talk to Kate to see what they could get rid of. Because a lot of it used to be over in our office. And then when we moved the assessors and everything, and when the annex got open, it all went back over there. And,
Yeah, their records are a little different. They don't follow the same
Right.
schedule we do.
so, anyway, I did try to get those records out of there, but I got more or less told, no, we want to leave that availability. So, because the back ante room where sometimes the counselors will meet or the attorneys will meet with their clients. They want, at one point, we talked about moving some in there, and they said, no, we want to leave that available, so. Any other thoughts, input? That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Excited to see your spreadsheet this morning. I hope we get a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, no, we do. We do. No, yeah. Nope. So, but there's no more input on changes. Okay. The Town of Rochester Town Board authorized the supervisor to circulate the RFP for the design and construction of, let's say, a single ADA bathroom in the Town of Rochester Justice Court as presented and amended.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, got a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm gonna run to the restroom. so I have to stand
Yep,
this next-
actually, you're recusing.
Yeah, we're cruising that.
So. Yeah, thank you. This next is an application that we received originally last fall. It was transmitted to us. You see the date of the original zoning permit is June 1st of 2021. This is for the parcel that is next to the high school. Michael, on the map, it is the little long skinny strip piece that is there. Everybody else has seen it. The other longer, skinnier piece that is somewhat part of it is AR3. The little tiny piece got zoned R5. My contention is when we did the mapping at the county IT office, that it was simply a mistake, that when we grabbed the high school parcel, we also grabbed the contiguous parcel and made it R5. It doesn't even fit AR3, but everything surrounding it is AR3, so it makes sense.
That's only 2 acres.
Yeah, it's only 2 acres. We could not make it an R2 or an R1 though, because it would be the equivalent of spot zoning. We can change it to AR3 because everything surrounding it is AR3. The reasoning behind this request is.
Excuse me 1 minute. Charlotte, because you're recused, you can't sit at the board table. You have to go sit with Charlie and then you can come back. Sorry.
I'm not
That's
here.
okay. Not a problem. Thank you, Mary Lou. I appreciate that. They are requesting to do, they filed a permit to put a swimming pool on the property. R5 requires 100-foot setback for accessory structures. The whole parcel isn't even wide enough to do that. If they're able to go to the lower AR3 setbacks. But clearly, I think that this was an error. I don't think it's that there was any intention that this 2-acre parcel should have been zoned to 5-acre zoning. Even changing it to 3-acre, you can't subdivide it, you can't do anything with it. It just makes it be what it probably was intended. Yeah. So we have the zoning permit. He did fill out a portion of the designating petition. Because the information is provided already on the zoning permit, I told him it was not necessary to fill out the rest of that form. So it is done and signed. The EAF has been completed and actually did not even need to be completed to the level that it was. We only had to check yes in box number 1, because that's, does this action involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law ordinance, administrative rule or regulation? And the answer is yes. So it simply only needs to be signed, but the rest is filled out. Being that it's a single parcel, it qualifies as an unlisted action under seeker. I didn't put this in a resolution form, but I probably will add that resolution when we get to it, or we can do it later. I did prepare the local law. Simply, the zoning map of the town of Rochester shall be amended to reflect the property contained in Ulster County tax map known as SBL 69.3-3-16, 62 Kaiserreich Road, Stone Ridge, New York, located in the Rural Conservation R5 zoning district, shall be rezoned to be relocated in the Residential Agricultural AR3 zoning district. And that's the extent of the local law.
Sorry, why does it say 56 on the application?
56 is the location of where they live. The property, look at the site location, 62. So 56 is the other parcel next door to it. So with the board's permission, I'd like to move this forward. So the recommended resolution, and this will be local law number 2 of 2022. The Town of Rochester Town Board sets public hearing for local law 2 of 2022, an amendment to the Town of Rochester zoning map to be held on, and I left it blank. Do we want to continue our practice of holding public hearings after the audit meeting, or do we want to hold it at the workshop meeting in April? What's the board's feeling?
What do we have coming up for this next, do we even have time to get it in for the next workshop meeting or audit meeting?
We've got 2 already.
You all right?
We couldn't do it at this meeting. It's got to go to the county. The county doesn't meet until the first Wednesday. It's got to go to our local planning board. The earliest we could do it is our workshop meeting. I kind of like the idea of doing public hearings after our audit meeting. We'll get a consistency, and we have another local law that I'm going to propose that I'd like to do the same night. So that would be whatever the last Thursday is of April. You got that date, Andy? Yeah.
Last Thursday, April would be the 28th.
I mean, it adds 2 weeks to the process. I don't know.
It does,
Getting
but
quotes and everything, we don't anticipate.
yeah, well, it does have to go to the county, and it has to go to our local planning board, and our local planning board meets, what's the second Monday?
Second Monday is April is the 11th.
So they won't meet till April 11th. If we were then to do it on the 13th, 2 days later, oh no, our meeting would be on the 20th. It is one of those weird months. We could do it April 20th.
My only concern with 2 things. One is the consistency, like you talked about. 2 is if we get into one of these marathon workshop meetings that we're getting on for this year.
All right, so it's 11 extra days.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, they've been waiting since June as it is, so. So then, okay, April 8th, 28th, and then we can say at 7 PM because our workshop is, our audit meeting's at 6. In theory, we can do the bills in an hour, so at 7 PM at the Harold Lifton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Ackwood, New York, 12404. The town clerk is requested to circulate legal notice to the public. So do I have that motion?
I'll make that.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. And the notice below that on the agenda is the language that is in the local law. Next, town of referral to UCPB and TORPB. The town of, sorry for my typo there, get rid of that extra R. Town of Rochester Town Board requests the town clerk send request for comments for local law 2 of 2022, an amendment to the town of Rochester zoning map, the Ulster County Planning Board, and the town of Rochester Planning Board. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. You can't vote on that one either. This is the referral for the application.
Commission one.
Nope,
I heard
Nope.
wrong.
nope. And if the board is okay, I'd like to add another resolution establishing this as a uncoordinated review, unlisted action for the purposes of CEQA.
I'll make that motion.
A second?
Second.
That's a roll call vote. Yep, no problem.
Councilman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Allen. Aye. Councilman Paddock.
Aye.
Councilman Sneesick is recused and Supervisor Green.
And Kate, I'll get all this information to you with the referral form
Okay.
tomorrow. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's kind of just been hanging out there for a while and for a number of reasons, and just want to move it forward. Next, the Recreation Commission local law, as was requested by the board, I put it into local law format. I'm going to go ahead and make the resolution. The Town of Rochester Town Board sets public hearing for local law 3, and sorry, the header says 2 of 2022. I cut and paste. Local law 3 of 2022, establishing chapter 40 of the Town of Rochester Town Code, establishing a recreation commission to be held on April 28th. Immediately following the public hearing on local law number 2 of 2022 at the Harold Lipton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Accord, New York, 12404. The town clerk is requested to circulate legal notice of the public hearing. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Discussion. If anybody, this is the time, if you want to discuss the local law itself, it's pretty much straight out of what I took from the state.
That's the same thing we looked at.
Same thing we looked at. I did leave the membership of 5 to 7, a minimum of 5, maximum of 7. Right now, we actually have 6 members.
Right.
And it doesn't appear that I found there's any reason we can't do that. So that way it gives them the flexibility if they get to a period where they have 7 members, they don't have to have 4 for a quorum. I mean, I'm sorry, if they only have 5 members participating and there's 2 vacant seats, then they really run into a problem with quorum. And being that they're an advisory board only, I don't want to sort of hang them up on quorum. So that was my reasoning for doing that. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. I will be doing the seeker form for that. Mary Lou, I may need some guidance if that what that local law is, if that's a type 1 action or an unlisted. I'm not sure. It's
Okay,
creating
I
a
will look.
recreation commission. I didn't really do the research. We don't have to refer it to anybody, so it's not urgent that we do it before the refer, because there is no referral. It's not a land use action, so it doesn't have to go to the planning board or anything.
Mhm.
Did you want to schedule a special meeting after that, or will you just wait till the town board meeting?
Um,
a week later?
I think we'll probably wait to the town board
Okay.
meeting for that, for the moment. If we decide that we need a special meeting after, we can always do that at the April regular meeting.
Okay.
But thank you for the reminder. I wanted to call attention real quick, and I apologize, I didn't say this in the beginning. In your packets, I included I emailed these to you, but this is the recommendation from the Ulster County Planning Board for the accessory dwelling unit law. We do have that public hearing at 7 p.m. on the 31st. Just wanted you to see it so you could be thinking about it if we need to make any amendments to the law. Bear in mind, if we make any substantial changes, and my guess is those would be substantial changes, we would have to hold the public hearing open and renotice the public hearing with those changes being made known to the public. So just pointing that out. if we don't make any changes, we could take action that night in our special meeting, or we could hold off until the next meeting. Mary Lou, if we make those changes that the county recommended, we need to repost notice, or if we just hold the public hearing open,
No, you can just hold it open.
and then we could reconvene it at say the regular meeting a week later?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The RFP website vendor selection, I did circulate the list of the answers to the questions to the people who requested it. We had 12 or 13 people request those answers. It was 6 pages of questions. It was a lot of questions.
I've received 4 so far.
Proposals already? Good. They are due this Friday, so that's great. We did say that they couldn't be emailed. We wanted actual copies. Once I receive them, I'll be circulating them all to you. So that's part of what I wanted to talk about tonight. It's due this Friday. When does the board want to score these? Being that we are having a special meeting after the public hearings on the 31st, we could include that as part of that meeting, our public scoring of these proposals. That would give you, this Friday is the 18th. That would give you almost 2 weeks. That would give you 13. Well, you would get them probably from me on Monday. I doubt I'm going to get them to you on Friday. If Kate's not getting them until Friday afternoon. But it would still give you about 11 days to score them. So does the board feel comfortable with us planning on scoring them on the 31st?
How many have you received so far? 4.
I have no idea how many we're gonna get. I mean, there were 12 companies who asked questions. Who knows if they'll all submit one or not.
We had a stack.
What?
Did you circulate the question?
I didn't to the board members. I can do that. I will do that if you'd like. I sent it to, answered everybody who sent it. And then since then, I got one person who said, I see we missed the deadline, and I forwarded it to them last night. So everybody who has asked for a copy of the answers has received one, with one exception. There was one company that was not in the United States. I made the decision as the supervisor that we did not want to do business with a company located outside the United States. And if they decide to submit a proposal, that's up to them, but I did not send them the answers to the questions. Because one of their questions was, are you willing to do business with a company not located in the United States? I personally didn't feel comfortable with that. So I exercised a little bit of independent judgment on that. General code editorial and legal analysis. Mary Lou, the answer to your question is yes. The email you sent.
I had a feeling.
So for the new board members, and Aaron and Adam may not even remember, because this goes back to 2019. When we transferred our code to general code and put it in the eCode 360 online, one of the other services we signed up for is they did an editorial analysis of our entire code, went through, checked it against our own code for inconsistencies, checked it against state code, checked it against federal code for inconsistencies. They sent a binder section by section of, we make these recommendations, or we say this is fine, or gave us the opportunity to say we want to make these changes in this section. That came to us in March of 2020. Remembering what else happened in March of 2020, pandemic. It's still, Mary Lou and I did meet. We went through most.
And a couple times and then we had
Couple times.
Omicron when we were ready to do it again.
It's sitting on my desk, still there, ready to go.
Mine too.
Being that we're making some changes to laws now, but I'm going to propose that nothing that the board has to do, but I wanted to make you aware of it. Probably about the 10th time they've emailed me and said, we've already paid for this service. They said, just reminding you, we'd really like to get this done. And so what will happen is they will incorporate, it's called the codification of the code. And what it is it compiles, the last time it was done was in the early 90s. It compiles all the changes to the code that have happened since then, puts them all in one place, and basically it compiles everything. I mean, Kate right now, her code book is pieces and pages and crossouts. So what this does is it creates one nice new neat document that has all the changes to the code. There have been a few, like in 2004, when they provided to us digitally, they did some work on it, but it's still not an official code. What we will get now is 2 books of this is the town code of Rochester. And even some of the questions are, what color do you want the book to be? And we need to do it. You know, we're 30 years past, almost 30 years past the last time it was done. So Mary Lou and I'm going to try to make time so you and I can sit down and finish this. We will be bringing this back to the board for authorization to send these compiled changes to general code. They then create a document and we do a local law that changes, amasses all the changes into one local law and basically says, changed. If you look at our current code, you see a lot of notes that say change the time of codification, change the time of recodification. That's what this does. It also compiles every change that's been made by all the local laws since then into the documents. And we get both paper copy and the digital Eco 360 is updated to do that. So it's time we get it done. If we keep waiting until we're done changing codes, we're always going to be waiting because we're always going to be adopting a local law or 2 every year. It's always going to happen. So basically, that's my comment on broadband. I'm going to let Michael kind of take it from here, but he's been having some conversations with Spectrum and actually getting return emails. So I'll let him.
Are they out of office emails?
No, they're actually. He's actually
Okay,
got
good.
somebody replying back. But that is funny, Mary Lou. Do you want to share or what do you want to? So to give you a little background, March Gallagher, the comptroller, sent us that map that I held up last time. Michael and I. Yep, I will.
Doing the other one.
Let me just make you. No, I think I can do it here. No, I can't. I can make you a co-host. There you go, Michael. Now you can share. I love this new technology. So Michael and I took March's map, and when did we do it? Monday, Tuesday? Okay. Tuesday. Yesterday. It was yesterday. We went out and drove the roads. Followed the areas that were red, which meant there was no coverage. Found an awful lot of them did indeed have coverage. Spectrum says to Michael that there are only 25 homes in Rochester that don't have ability to get broadband. I'm still questioning that number, but I think it's more realistic that it might be 50 or so, but I think it's less than what we thought. There's a lot of roads that the wire's there. We didn't go to every single road. We went out for about 3 hours, covered a lot of town. We're going to kind of work to get back in those areas again, see what we can find. There's some places where there's no coverage, but it's wide open fields on either side. We're going to kind of make them lower priorities. Obviously, somebody could build a house there at some point, but right now it's not imperative to get coverage. So this map that Michael created, Michael, I don't know if you can sort of zoom that out a little bit. Or zoom in, I'm sorry, make it bigger.
Where, yeah, so, well, let me explain what this is. So obviously this is Rochester. So this was kind of a visual, like me looking at the little quadrants. I was trying to see if I had the. I mean, this is me like eyeballing
No, it is.
this map and trying to like, so the red lines are basically from 2009, I think, where we were in that coverage. And so looking at all these in the street names and then trying to match that to these actual parcels. So this kind of represents it. I missed a few up here. Like basically this whole area wasn't covered in 2009. And then, so these are state lands in gray. So we're less concerned about New York State lands, Mohawk, things like that. And then this is more or less what we drove the other day. So everything in brown, we verified that it is still covered. So I think this is Upper Cherrytown.
Upper Cherrytown, with the exception of one house,
Yeah, like this one right
has
here.
coverage.
One.
In 2009, Wayne Kelder was allowed the highway department to help Supervisor Chipman, and they literally went and mapped the roads, but 13 years later, quite a bit of it has coverage.
So I think what Spectrum has acknowledged is a bunch of the Cherrytown properties, which I think is clustered down here. I think it's this cluster.
Yep.
And
That's it, exactly.
then St. Joseph, which is just at the end of St. Joseph. So of their 25, I think that covers like 15. So I basically said for them, well, there's only 10. I haven't heard back yet. But I think from Mark Gallagher's perspective, like a lot of this, I think, like these developments, I'm pretty sure are all covered. We just didn't have a chance to drive up there. So, you know, we could divide this up by streets, and I don't know if we can just say like, oh, I know that people on that street definitely have it.
Yeah,
Finish this map, and then this ultimately, I think, is what we provide back to Harvard.
yeah. I mean, some of that area too is where there's newer subdivision, or at least newer homes. That area you're pointing at back in the day was a subdivision, but it was still all vacant. Now there's homes up there, and there might be coverage up there.
Right.
We tackled Stilleberg Strata, but Michael was able to make a phone call to somebody who lives at the end of Stilleberg Strata, and they said, we got it. So we assumed that if it was there, it was the rest of the road.
Yeah, actually, I think that's this section over here. These are probably covered now.
Yeah, we could sort of look that up, but
Yeah, so Clearview, they definitely have it this week here. So I assume it goes all the way up Baker Road to get to that. So these would probably get knocked out. So there's some cleanup we can do here, but hopefully it's better news. Now, if people know for a fact I have 10 houses on my property that aren't covered, then we need to check those numbers a little better.
part of the reason I'm trying to get it to March as soon as possible is I think she is, and this is just my opinion and my guess, I think she is looking to try to get the county to look at this on a countywide level. Whereas what I'm sort of hearing is the county is not going to put ARPA money into broadband because nobody still really knows what the infrastructure bill is going to bring. And neither do we. We do have 105,000 that was set aside by the previous town board for broadband or for Cablevision, which we can then construe as the broadband. We could potentially use ARPA money additionally. I just want to make sure, and this is again, in my opinion, that we're getting the most bang for our buck. I wouldn't want to spend $100,000 to get one parcel covered. So if we can spend $100,000 and get 10 or 12 parcels covered, well, then maybe it's worth the cost. The other thing is, Michael and I discussed this. My goal is to get it to the utility pole where the public access is. If somebody lives down a quarter-mile driveway, it's kind of on them to get it from the pole to their house. But if we get the availability to the nearest utility, Michael reminds me, they're called utility poles, not telephone poles. So if we get it to the nearest utility pole, we've kind of done our job. So did you include the Medicahonts ones that we identified in that map as well as the unserved?
Like up by Bell.
Bell's Farm?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's another thing. So all of the parcels that I have from the initial thing, and then we have the parcel information, addresses. So we could divide it up and say, okay, it's these, 30 roads that were on the original map. And then, say, oh, I know for a fact that they have.
We can teach you how to spot it. It's actually pretty simple how to
Yeah.
spot the wire. Yeah, I mean, I was driving and Michael was watching. We were like, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh, wait, stop there.
That road is tough.
Doug Road, the poles disappeared in the woods, so we guessed, but he confirmed today with somebody. Yeah, we weren't gonna start delving that deep into it, but since it was where it went into the woods and where it came out of the woods, we decided it had to have been in the middle. So, but that's where we stand. But the good news is it may not be as bad as we had thought. We could potentially be 50 homes. I don't want to say parcels. If you count parcels, all that state land and everything
Right.
else, but I don't think that's a priority. We want to get broadband to people so they have it for their homes, their businesses. So maybe with a realistic number. Now, Spectrum acknowledges to Michael 16 of the parcels, but they won't tell us the other 9. They still fall back on the proprietary. They acknowledge, well, they acknowledge by section. They said, yep, Cherrytown Road and the end of St. Joseph Road. They acknowledge there's 6 at the end of St. Joseph Road. And they say there's what, 12 or 10 on Cherrytown?
They didn't say a number, but
We think it's 13, I think, but anyway.
even then the cost per connection.
So, but what I would like to do is come up with a definitive number, go back to them and say, we have identified these areas, this number of potential customers as not having service. What's it going to cost to get it here? And then get them to tell us the price, and then we'll go from there. But at least it's more what, we're so far ahead of what roads are covered and what roads aren't covered now. And because we were guessing, and we found out the roads that some of the roads that they were in the contract that they were supposed to extend over, they wouldn't tell us whether they did or not, but we discovered by driving it, they did. So at least the option is there for the people, whether they take it or not is always their choice. So that's where we stand. I'm hoping by toward the end of this week. Do you have Friday available? Because I have a lot of Friday.
Too, but I'm trying to schedule other things. So
Okay.
I can make time.
I can go out and drive. It doesn't, it's easy enough to drive.
It's easier with 2 people.
Yeah, it is much easier with 2 people.
Safer.
Keep your eyes on the road.
Anything else?
Oh, well, while I have it up.
Rescue.
Yeah, stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so Michael's also been working on the mapping for the ambulance improvement districts. And Mary Lou, this will show you what we're talking about with the parcels. Actually, Michael, can you turn off that layer for a moment? So Mary Lou, you see down in the bottom in the shaded pink where it divides parcels? That's the area that we're gonna have
Yep.
issues with. So,
Yeah, so you can. And then this other layer I have on is the one I was telling you about, Mike. So this layer here
shows where homes are.
shows, well, some. So this was generated by Microsoft and open source. And it's pretty accurate if you put the imagery on. You can see.
Yeah. Wow, it is pretty
They
accurate.
do a pretty good job. And they just looked at the imagery and then, like there'll be some outbuildings within this. But, the ones in question, like this parcel here is split by KFAS. The house is clearly, like the parcel is
Yeah.
KFAS and then FAU.
Yeah.
But the house is clearly in KFAS.
Well, yeah, I don't want us to get too caught up in talking about houses though, because you could have an emergency call in the woods, you could have an emergency call on the streets.
Yeah.
It really does need to be by district, but if it doesn't follow parcel lines in a taxing district, we have to get guidance from the state in how to do that.
Well, and I think the reason I was saying houses was because you assume that the responding EMS unit would come on public roads and then come on public roads to the house first.
And I don't know, maybe if we have to go back to the county and to the agency and say, can you make?
We might have to get those district lines moved.
Moved to follow,
Well, we could do that too. Like we could say, okay, we're gonna pull. and
well,
then
we
they
can't,
do-
they would have to.
We can't,
do it.
we have to get approval to do it.
Roads, how do the boundaries work? Do
So
you
they-
know, for the districts?
They kind of like, well, I talked to Tom at the county today and they kind of follow roads. So there's Rock Hill.
You mean physically or in terms of process?
In terms of process.
So an
the road-
agent, the agency, meaning the ambulance squad, says, we will cover this area through the county EMS. They basically have, it's called a I don't remember the term of it, MO, it's not an MOU, that's memorandum of understanding. It's an MO something, and they say this, we will, yeah, I don't know, I'll have to look it up. But anyway, we will cover this boundary. And that boundary is set by the county. And those maps are then drawn up as this is their coverage area.
So if the road is the boundary line and
It's easy.
an accident happens on the road, that's the boundary line,
I-
then one unit.
yeah,
If
I-
it happens on a house that's accessed by that road, then the other unit.
Well, so Berm is a good example.
The
right?
pink
Everything
shaded
south
area
of
is
Berm-
their area.
Everything south of Berm, on the southern side of Berm Road in this section.
Okay.
I can't answer if the accident happens on the road, which one they call. I don't know the answer to that, but
Well, the reason why I was asking is that might be one of the reasons why they don't simply go by parcel, depending on how the access to like.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how the bounds of the map were created.
Okay.
I suspect they follow the road to a point, and then literally, if you look at the county map, there's some straight, jagged, if that makes sense. There's
Right.
some straight lines with definite changes that I have no idea what the rationale was to make those lines.
Yeah, this, I mean, right here, so this road here is towpath, this is Rock Hill, and here's the line that just like splits like right between.
Yeah.
The road.
But this is the actual line that is created that the county
Right.
maintains. So if a call comes in and they identify a location, they determine who they call. When it comes into a 911, these maps are in the 911 system. The dispatcher looks it up, okay, that's a Kerhonkson call, or okay, that's a Marbletown call. So we're honored because that's where they legally can do service. We can't arbitrarily change the
Right,
maps
right.
on our own. But if it doesn't follow a parcel, we're trying to create a taxing district, which is parcel based. Their map is not parcel based, so we have to get guidance on how we do that.
But in that case, for dispatch, it would go by street address, so like this.
Yeah,
this
I
street
just don't
address-
want to make any assumptions. I want to get clear guidance from the state on how we do it, because I don't want it to be any, I want it to be done properly. So I don't think we can make any decisions, assumptions. We just need clear guidance.
Did Rosendale do anything?
Rosendale is nowhere near where we are yet. And Marbletown was easy because Marbletown is the entire town. So, we're kind of I mean, fire districts, I don't know if fire districts follow parcels, and I don't know how they, maybe real
I just got
property.
that today.
Yeah, maybe real property can help us out with that. So, but I'm sure Mary Lou can make some calls and find out some answers for us. Anyway, a little bit out of order, but that's where that is right now. Solid waste law, we've talked about it a lot. I went ahead. Yeah, thank you. Went ahead and put it together. It's still exactly as it was last time when I presented it. As a matter of fact, I still left the draft for discussion date at the top. If the board would like to move forward with this, setting it for public hearing, I will do that resolution for our April meeting. And we can then move it forward and set it for public hearing.
Well, I had comments on this combined one.
Yep, well, and that's kind of what I wanted to do tonight is walk through it and see. I don't want to go line by line. But if anybody knows of anything in particular tonight that you want to look at or change. And I understand, like, I remember there was some language in there from the existing solid waste law that may be a little outdated. So perhaps we need to tweak that. I didn't really amend the solid waste. What I did is took Warsing's littering law and inserted the appropriate sections into our solid waste law and merged them together as one law, is how I created this. The old Chinese menu local law version.
One more column to-
Exactly.
So I know one thing that I saw was in the general regulations,
You want to give a page number?
4, 118.11, section A. I think we just need to make sure there's a carve out there for the Rochester Exchange. It says no person shall pick over or remove any positive solid waste transfer station.
Except as authorized by the town board. We've already authorized the exchange to work, function, so I think would you agree, Mary Lou? It says, I don't know if you have the old
Do not
draft.
have this in front of me, so go ahead and read to me.
It says no person shall pick over or remove any object deposited at the solid waste transfer station site except as authorized by the town board. So Michael's Coleman is the exchange, but wouldn't that fall under as authorized by the town board?
Yeah, that's authorized by the town board.
We're authorizing the exchange to occur.
Yep.
Okay,
So technically, you're not supposed to post stuff out and scrap it or the electronic
No.
section.
you are not, and that's a liability thing. If somebody does
Yeah,
that,
that's a-
places their hand open.
That's danger,
Yeah.
Will Robinson.
Yep,
I've
technically
never-
you would
I've
not.
never done.
Sometimes there's some good stuff in there.
We can.
Yeah, we can, yeah, we can.
Do you want to walk through it, or do you want to take a look and get back to me with any ideas or changes
Yeah,
by
I have
email?
Yeah, I had some, like the dead animal and fowl, like obviously, people throw out dead animals all the time, chicken, steak, and everything. So I didn't know if we should say carcass, because I think we're saying like don't dispose of. like-
Yeah, I mean, bear in mind, when that existed, we didn't have the food waste section,
Yeah.
so.
Um,
Because we did have some people try to put some roadkill in the food waste, and we had to stop them.
Ooh,
Yeah, we don't want roadkill or carcass. I think we're allowed to do excrement as long as it's like from domesticated pets.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, really, if you just,
Yeah.
from the recycling and RRA standpoint, if you see anything in this that, and I really didn't, like I said, I didn't really edit the solid waste section much at all. I took our existing and just fit the littering where it seemed appropriate. So I don't, I'm
It is
not,
an opportunity to.
opportunity to
anything.
update, yes. Yes.
The other thing on the littering stuff, the 118.24.
Yep.
I mean, so we're basically saying that the code enforcement officer or constantly personally see litter being dropped for. And I was wondering if there are other like public servants that fall in that category. Like if somebody on the road crew sees somebody, if they can.
I don't know. Well, they can't issue an appearance. So Mary Lou, the issuance of an appearance ticket, it says where a violation of the chapter is observed by a public servant employed by the town whose duties include the enforcement of this chapter, an appearance ticket shall be issued in accordance with chapter 2 of the code of the town of Rochester to the property owner or individual committing the violation. If somebody witnesses it, even if a resident witnesses it and then reports it, say the resident sees somebody dumping something on the side of the road and copies down their license plate number and turns it in to the constable or the code enforcement officer. Does this stop us from that ability to issue a ticket?
I was more thinking about other town employees.
Yeah,
Like if the road crew sees somebody dumping.
yeah, you would have to actually authorize them within the chapter to,
okay.
issue a ticket because it,
Okay.
right?
Okay, so we must,
Otherwise, they could bring it to Jerry or the constable or whoever the chapter does authorize.
right. So could we change it to observed or reported to a public servant?
Well, we'd want them to verify. We wouldn't.
Well,
want
yeah,
them-
no, but if it's reported, they don't have, they get the ability to write a ticket. They don't, doesn't mean they're automatically gonna
Yeah,
But-
I don't think that the officer should have to observe it because what are the odds, right?
write it.
If you see the
Okay.
constable car, you're gonna wait.
Right, yeah.
Or if you see
But if
Jerry's
somebody,
truck.
well, like one of us, for example, I watched somebody driving down the road when they literally throwing stuff out their window, and I wrote their license plate number down and gave it to Jerry the next time I saw him.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't really able to do anything with it, but I still did. And so if a resident takes a picture of a license plate number or whatever, this
Sure,
was
it's-
pre-cell
Just,
phone.
it can be worded that way, just like a resident reports their neighbor for
Right.
a code
Okay.
a building code violation.
But
So
then
we'll,
so here, the point I'm trying to make is the opposite, which is that what if people just start reporting people for littering offenses and they didn't do it?
Jerry still gets the ability to say yes or no, he's gonna issue. the
Right.
ticket. We would have to change shall to may,
Yeah,
but it has to be substantial proof, but
Right.
this just allows them
It's
to act
investigating.
on a report if they
Okay.
think there's enough evidence.
If you find a bag of garbage and it's got Michael Coleman,
oh, I'm
Mail it.
gonna be making a phone.
yeah, well, if it's got my mail.
The Alice's Restaurant law.
Yeah. I mean, Supervisor Chipman used to do that all the time. If somebody dumped a bag of garbage on the side of the road, he'd go through and look for any identifying information.
Yeah, they do it. They do that in Kingston all the time. And
So
when I was corp counsel, we got a lot of people on that.
probably need to tweak that section just to allow, the burden of the proof still has to be met for them to issue the
Of
violation.
course,
But
right. They're not going to issue a violation unless they can
Right.
prove it when they get to court.
Right, because but that's the nature of their job. They don't issue a violation, they've investigated. The law doesn't have to say that they have to investigate. It just says that if somebody provides information to them, they can issue the ticket or the appearance notice without having observed it themselves. So I think we can tweak that language to make it both be legal and productive. Because I get calls all the time about people throwing stuff at, but usually the call is, somebody left a whole bunch of stuff here, and we go pick it up and throw it away, but there's never much we can do because we never have any idea who did it. But the fact that, as Kate pointed out, we have signs that say there's a fine for littering, and we don't have a code that allows us to enforce it. Definitely a problem.
The only other major thing I saw is on page 6. I just think if somebody's cited and found guilty, I think 20 days is a long time. So leave the garbage sitting there. So like I don't know, if you've been found guilty of leaving garbage unsecure.
Which section are you talking about, Michael?
118.6 to remove proceedings. I mean, Alice's Restaurant.
Oh,
you gotta go back
yeah,
that day.
yeah,
It's Thanksgiving.
yeah.
I just think 20
Yeah,
days, 20
Mary-
days is generous.
Well, let's see.
Can you read that to me?
It says, litter removal proceeding, where a property owner or individual has been cited and found guilty, pled guilty, or entered into a settlement or civil compromise wherein the existence of the litter has been established, and 20 days have elapsed unless in the disposition of the appearance ticket a different time frame has been ordered by the court or agreed upon by the parties, and the litter has not been substantially removed from the property, then a litter removal proceeding can be commenced as hereinafter provided. So it basically, if you're found guilty and you're told to clean it up, but the judge doesn't put a number of days in there, we're saying the default is 20 days or Jerry can recite you. Michael's saying it should be less days. You probably would just have to review the state statute to see if that 20 days was by state statute or just was an arbitrary.
I think my guess is it's something that is arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because generally you have to do it immediately. I think,
Yeah,
you
and then,
know,
then it goes into a whole process. The code enforcement caused an inspection to be made and to report his findings to the town board. And then the town board, so basically this goes to the town board. The town board considers the report, determine the litter is a dangerous or nuisance to public health. And then we do a notice to remove.
and this is all after the
It
court
says
decision?
after a person has been cited, found guilty. Yep.
All right, that doesn't sound right to
There's
me.
a whole public hearing.
That sounds a bit long-winded and odd.
It does. And you know what? Actually, this is new. This is litter removal. So I think this may be from the Wawarsing code, but I'll look into that, because if we cut this, we can cut 2 pages off this law.
Just get rid of the garbage.
So, Mary Lou, I will email you a copy of that, and you can look at the last version of it.
Thank
But,
you. Yeah.
It's the same one I circulated before, so you probably have a paper copy.
Oh, okay. All right. It hasn't
But I'll
changed.
email it to you anyway.
So
All
our
right.
goal is to come with changes and then set this for public hearing at our April meeting.
That's what, I'd like to get the changes beforehand.
Right.
Do a final discussion at that meeting, not bring the changes here. I'd like to
Right.
try to get the changes in the document I provide to all of you. So if each of you provides to me any changes you would like to make, I'll compile them all into the local law. If they're competing changes, then I'll just list both options. We will go through it, come out with a final document, hopefully set it for public hearing that night. Mary Lou, solid
That
waste.
is from the town of Wawarsing law.
I thought it was when I saw the litter section, because I went to their code, which is fairly recent, and copied the language from their code. But then we can set it for public hearing. We don't need to do any referrals of this to anybody other than founding towns, just of notice of the public hearing.
Right. Correct.
So-
I didn't even know that it has to go to bounding towns. This isn't,
Okay. I wasn't sure if they had to be noticed of
No.
every local law. Okay. So send me
no,
your comments
it's,
in the next 10 days or so, and I'll have it ready for us on the 6th. You could even, we could potentially discuss the comments at that special meeting if anybody feels that they really want to, and then have a more finished product. So I'll see how substantial they are, and we'll get Mary Lou's comments on it. Next is, Erin, do you have anything on the hiring policy?
Well, so I
or-
don't think the board members ever got this.
Okay.
Everyone got the materials that Councilman Paddock had put together. Those were sent as a. This is just, I have a copy for everyone. I basically typed up what we were doing last year with our hiring and creation of a subcommittee. It's not like a strict thing. I just wanted especially the new board members to see what we, like our, sort of what we were doing, though it's not like a policy that we've adopted. And that's, I mean, people could take a look at that. It's basically just a description as much as I could. Where, like, how we were forming a subcommittee of the department head, supervisor, employee, and the liaison, what those, what would occur, and so forth. And then
So
I
this
tried.
is a compilation of our manual.
Yeah, and then I
And
pulled
state law.
out, I pulled out the manual parts because we don't, if something in the manual we want to change, that's a different issue. So sort of I was using the manual as a guide to show how we were following our manual with this practice, but it's kind of expanding on it. Right now, we don't have a set policy. It's sort of done on a case-by-case basis, but we also follow the law in terms of, you know, who, there are certain officials that can make their own appointments. So that's in here too.
Yep.
Some of it might be a little more formal than we want, but maybe we do want to have that level of formality in some of the positions, but I think maybe everyone should take a look, and then I can recirculate what you sent too, because that's in an attachment in an email as a.
I'd also like to get it to all the department heads, to
Yeah.
get their opinion
Sure.
on it.
Yeah.
Which would be Justice LeBlanc, Justice Albo, Kate, Jeff Fry,
Yeah.
and Ashley.
Okay,
Just get, because those are the department heads.
well, and I could, because in the past, we have not involved, the town board has not been involved with any of the hiring decisions with the clerk's office.
That's true, and we're not, because they're
Or-
appointed.
Or the superintendent's office. So I outlined that in the beginning. That
We have no, those, we just accept their appointments.
Yes.
And we set the rate of pay. In the highway department situation, it's set by contract. We set the rate of pay for justice court clerk. It's with, on advice and consent of the justice.
Yes,
So they get to suggest a name. We can accept it or reject it. Or we can pick a name, but if we pick a name, they have to agree to
yeah.
so they advise us or they consent.
And that reminds me, on that specific one, I might want to spell that out, the hiring subcommittee more clearly.
And that's,
Because the court,
yeah.
it would be not simply the supervisory employee, it would be the justice who was that clerk position for that specific justice.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I might want to spell that out.
Because that's because we operate in a court justice
Yes.
position.
Yes.
If we had a court clerk, then it falls to the town board.
Yes. would
Because we
not
have a court to justice, it is
Mandate.
an appointed position, but with our
with consent.
agreement of appointment.
Yeah.
We can say no, and then they have to come to a different name.
Well, and they
We
can say
can't
no.
reject an appointment that Kate makes. We can't reject an appointment Jeff makes.
Right. I think that for the clerk to justice, it's with the consent of the justice.
It's on the advice and consent is the
Yeah.
language.
Okay.
So they advise, or if it works the other way,
Right.
they consent.
Right.
So and Michael is was very clear in teaching me the difference of the clerk to justice and the justice court clerk. It sounds, not Michael Richards.
No idea.
Michael Richards said that. Aaron and I just had a meeting with him today, so it's
Yeah,
fresh in my
we
mind.
talked about it in that
And
meeting.
he has, Michael has many, many, many years of public civil service knowledge. Man could easily write a book, I'm sure, and probably should. So, okay, so do you want us to just sort of look at it?
I think we should look at it, and anyone should send me any, or I can also talk to you specifically too. Because I had some questions, but and then maybe we can flush it out.
And then we should probably run it through Michael and get
Yes.
and Mary Lou to get
Absolutely.
their sort of okays on it and make sure there's nothing.
Thanks. I was going to ask if you could send it to me.
Get nothing in there that we shouldn't be doing. And go from there. So thank you for all that work. Next, Charlotte has presented to us a resolution for establishing a housing advisory committee. So very nice work.
That was Michael. I will not take credit. for
Well,
that. That was Michael Coleman.
nice
who
work
had started
on
the
both your
literature
parts.
here.
Why don't I let you sort of present the ideas? I had a couple comments on it, but let me let you present the idea first, and then I'll sort of mention my comments and then everything else.
Yeah, so obviously being the liaison to the housing, and we do not have a housing committee, I don't really have much to do as a liaison, so I'm hoping that we get a housing committee started. And really, thank you, Michael, for starting the language on this morning, out of my wheelhouse. But just establishing, getting a committee in place and making their goals clear for, reviewing land policy, zoning and legislation, to make recommendations to us for affordable senior and workforce housing, those are different forms of housing.
Need comments in there.
Yes. Engage the community to determine current housing needs and encourage meaningful support for diverse housing options. Work with policy leaders to ensure that present and future policies further the goals of encouraging and maintaining a stock of affordable housing. Assist in the identification and development of potential sites for affordable senior, affordable senior and sustainable housing that preserve the character of the town, and coordinate with Ulster County to identify ways to collaborate on opportunities to increase the stock of affordable housing.
So that's the one I would want to say affordable and other types of housing, because I don't want to just be affordable. And then one thing I thought we should add too is there's agencies, there's not-for-profits like RUPCO who are very, very, they coordinate with Ulster County all the time, but they are an independent family of Woodstock. They come with wealth of information on housing needs, and I would want to include partnering with either, I don't necessarily want to say not-for-profit agencies, because I don't want to say they have to be a not-for-profit, but partnering with other agencies that specialize in housing, maybe is the way to go. Patterns for Progress is another one. They're doing a lot of research on housing needs for the county or for the region, for the 5-county region. And they've invested a lot of their money and time into documents that have a lot of the answers already there for us. So free advice, basically. So I want to include that, but otherwise, I think all these are really great.
I have one comment maybe, which is, and I'm not sure if this, it might also be from Mary Lou. The town board is establishing it, and I like the idea of a committee being able to work somewhat independently, setting its own agenda. But I think it also might be valuable to be able to refer, to ask for comments and refer specific things to the committee, either specific projects or have a specific question. And do we need to say that in this, or does this give that?
Well, that leads to a question I had for Mary Lou is, Mary Lou, can this formation of a committee like this, an advisory committee, can that be simply done by resolution? Is it better done by local law? Because if we did it by local law, we could set in the charge of this committee to advise the town board on, subjects.
But I guess it depends on how formal you want it to be. You can always ask them anyway. I generally don't see something like this being done by local law.
Okay.
So I want to ask Erin a question. Are you saying, like, for example, the planning board, if they have an application, we could refer it to this committee?
I wasn't thinking of that specifically. I was more thinking
More advisory to the town board.
to the town board, in that, like, the town board could potentially set some directives, but not necessarily specific ones laid out here. That's all. I was just thinking, the EEO that we have,
Yeah.
that might be something we would.
Well,
want.
in my vision, this committee serves at the pleasure of the town board. It's an advisory.
It's an ad hoc committee, really.
So the planning board couldn't really go seek guidance from them, but they could through the town.
Mhm.
In terms of do we need housing? If the planning board is considering that topic. It's a little muddy if the planning board starts, the ECC HPC is formed by local law. The HPC, they're established by local law, and their purpose is to advise the town board, the planning board as needed. I kind of agree with Mary Lou that forming by local law kind of pulls it into, by creating it by resolution as an advisory ad hoc committee that serves at the pleasure of the town board is, their whole function is to advise us.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I think
that-
that's the best way to
That's
go.
that was my main question, is like, is there an expectation in this resolution that the town board would be asking this committee to do specific things, and if the answer is yes, then I have no.
So,
I think it should be written into the resolution.
well, I think the answer, I mean, there's 3 bullets of specific things. I think the most input I want to see is what, so I don't want this to just be a committee that's providing, that's meeting and talking about housing. Like, I want
Right.
concrete action.
Yeah, me too, that's what I'm getting at.
So when we were talking about it, it was like, okay, what are the things that as a board we would want this committee to actually provide us, so that there's clear guidance for them and feel confusion. Like, okay, what are your expectations? Like, we want draft local laws. We want ideas about like talking to Rupco, for example. Like, what is Kingston trying to do to address concerns? What are other neighboring municipalities trying to do?
I guess so maybe I could phrase the thing I'm trying to say more specifically. It says review land use policies and make recommendations. So who's gonna say where they're gonna start with land use?
That's up to them.
Is it
What
up-
is it up to them, or do you want to add something that says, as may be requested from time to time by the town board?
Right.
And that way you can guide
That's
them.
okay, but I don't want to limit it to just
Oh,
what we
right.
asked them.
Me neither,
Yeah,
me neither. I'm just saying.
I think we, maybe then we add another bullet point to advise the town board when requested on housing issues. You can keep it
Yeah.
very vague, very generic.
Yep,
And
I like that.
Okay, I like that too.
yeah. So it just becomes another bullet point of what their charge is.
But I also think there should be concrete deliverables, like in addition to just, meeting minutes and keeping us updated on what they're doing. There should be some kind of expectation that the product that the committee is producing.
Yeah, we could add that, so.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking for other people to weigh in with ideas. We don't think we
Yeah,
need
that's
that.
where I was stuck with it too, is like. figuring
Yeah,
exactly
well, I
what
can
was-
tell you, like, I serve on the county trails advisory. We serve at the pleasure of the legislature, and we advise the legislature. But other than we are required to do an annual report to the legislature of our activities, just like the county planning board is required to do, and many other, they didn't tell us what we have to do. We usually, when we see there's a resolution on their agenda that's dealing with trails issues, we do research, we do discussion on it as a committee, and we oftentimes go and speak at public comment to the legislature. We don't ask to be treated differently than any other individual, but our goal is to advise them, and they've never told us what we're supposed to advise them on. Sometimes we just send them letters, which is the equivalent of like a public comment letter. Sometimes we actually go to the meeting and make verbal comments, but we're always advising them on what we feel is important. And, in full disclosure, it's made up of a group of people who are trails minded, and to some degree, that's what where our interest lies, and that's why we're on the commission. Do they always listen to us? No, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but I could see this being somewhat similar to that. People that are going to be on this committee have to be engaged in the topic. And I think one thing too, when we're doing our appointments, we have to be careful that we're not appointing somebody that would be doing it for personal objective. I'm not saying a developer couldn't be on the committee. We wouldn't want a developer who's saying, I can build 40 houses over here and make, and so, but I don't think we have to I want to give, in my opinion, I want to give them the ability to say, this is what's important to us. We can advise them, we can sort of coax them along with our requests. These deliverables, I don't know if every quarter is, to me, that's a little too much of a summary of activities every quarter, maybe not too much, but I think we should ask for like a yearly report or a bi-yearly report of where they stand. And they could do things like analyze the housing sales for that quarter, or the change in the average price, and statistics and things that are all very accessible. But if it's all sort of collaborated and compiled in one place, it's a lot easier for us. And
So you don't want to make it so specific, but I was thinking the same thing, that, you know, if this committee could come up with quarterly inventory price changes, things like that, that we could take into consideration, you know, while we're looking at all the other things. So I know, I try and follow it pretty closely, but, maybe collectively we don't, you know.
The one thing I will say, when you get to the membership, 5 full members and 2 alternates, there's no reason to put alternates on, because they're not a legislative committee. They're not adopting resolutions, so they have to have a quorum. But I think there's no purpose for alternates. You just pick 5 members who are supposed to show up regularly, and if they don't, you replace them. But
Do we think Glenn's a good member? Do we
Or
want
should we
more?
want to do 7?
You want to do the same thing we just did with the rec? Question? Go 5 to
well,
7?
yeah, we could say 5 to 7.
That way, if you
Yeah,
fill it
there's
up,
some-
and exact same reasons as the rec.
I mean, I know multiple people have this, right?
Yeah, a number
I
of
think that
people
it's
have,
not
and there is kind of an ad hoc group of citizens that made up of multiple communities countywide, but there is one in the Rondout Valley area that I know people in Rosendale, Marpletown have been sort of meeting, talking about this topic, and I know there's a fair amount of interest.
Do we limit it to residents? Do we have to limit it to residents?
I feel like we should, being that it's advisory to us. I don't think somebody not living in our boundaries should be appointed.
New calls telling us what we should do.
Yeah.
And we need to specify that, I guess, as part of the, or should be specified.
Yeah, shall be comprised.
Yeah, if you want to limit it to
5
town
to
residents,
7.
you have to specify it.
Yeah, so we'll just say 5 to 7 members who are residents of the town of Rochester. And then, so I like the idea of the 3-year terms. I think that gives them a good, sometimes these ad hoc committees are for 2 years. We want to start it maybe at 2 years as a starting point to see where it goes, and then we could always change it later.
Yeah.
I keep going back to the trails, but that's what we are. We're a 2-year committee that they just renew every 2 years. I think 3 plus for some people saying, oh, 3 years, that might feel daunting. The chairperson selected by members of the committee at the first meeting of each calendar year. I like that. In this, I don't think we need to appoint a chair. I think they're doing the work. And let's let them pick their own chair. It's an ad hoc committee, so I don't think.
One of the things I'm thinking with this specific committee, and I don't think we outlined it with our others, is if they have any budget requests, that might be something that we ask them to provide, because some of the research might cost.
Well, yeah. I don't think we need to include that in creating the committee, though. I think
Okay.
that's a function of us when we're doing our budgeting. If we want to appropriate a certain amount of money for them, we can ask them prior to, what funding do you need? Instead of saying shall meet a minimum of once per month, I would just say shall meet once per month. So how about saying once per month, or additional decided by the committee? Because that way, we want them to meet once a month, but if they feel that they want to meet or I just don't want it to become a job for people either. So, how do people feel about the quarterly updates? Is that,
I know you said it was a lot. It was one of the things I liked about it.
okay,
Yeah, I think that things change.
I'm
so
willing to leave it.
often with
I'm
it,
willing to leave it.
and especially with how much is developing in town recently, I think it'd be better. to
Can
go
we add a
forward.
bullet point then of the deliverables of an annual report provided to the board no later than February 28th? That gives them a little time at the end of the year to get it done. March 1st, I don't know, say more or less the same thing.
I like March 1st.
Sounds better. Oh, yeah.
Makes it a
good
little
point.
easier to not have
Yeah.
to take that into account, because I never know when it is. And then
The 4 hours of land use training, I'm not sure, I see the advantage of it, but I'm not sure that land use training specifically is always helpful in housing. I don't know. What are people's thoughts?
Can we maybe change it to the chair has to, not the entire, not every member?
No, I don't think
So
that
that
that's,
someone is
yeah.
I think when you've got a volunteer
yeah.
committee that's giving you once a month, I think you might scare people off if you're then requiring an extra 4 hours training that may give them some insight, but not a lot.
I think if we treat it where we let them know when there's housing training, like Pattern for Progress did a
Yeah.
whole
Oh,
half a day session of breakout sessions on housing. Let them know, hey, this is going on. Anybody wants to go, again, the appropriation, if we appropriate funding in our budget, we can make that available to them through the supervisor.
Yeah, or if they see something, they can request
Yeah,
it.
if they see something. I think, I would like to just take out that whole section and leave it a little flexible and make them aware of the training. Anybody who's serving on this commission probably, or committee, I'm not sure which we're calling it, committee, is going to be probably interested in these things. But I agree with Mary Lou saying, you gotta do 4 hours or we're gonna kick you off. I don't really want to.
Right, I mean,
Sorry.
that's what you have to have for the planning board, which is all and use.
So,
Yeah, but they are, I know it's a small stipend, but they are paid.
But that big board.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is,
You know,
if New York State only requires 4
Right.
hours
Oh,
for planning board,
I get you. Now I understand your point.
to have our fledgling volunteer board
Yeah.
mandated 4 hours.
Some of us
Same
used
as
to
the
do
planning
about
board.
60 hours a year, but that was a little
You,
crazy.
you're good until you're 148.
You might even be able to get some of them to do a training
Yeah.
during one of their
Yeah.
monthly
Yeah.
meetings.
Absolutely.
Well, I think, we have a liaison in place that can make them aware, and we can encourage them to say, hey, Rupco's offering this thing.
And I just talked to Dennis Doyle today, actually, and he brought up to me, they're interviewing candidates for the planning department staff that is in the county budget. They have not offered it to anybody yet, but they are presently interviewing, and that planner it's going to be a senior planner position that will be specifically dedicated to housing. Okay? So, and that's, I said, how's it going? And he said, well, we're interviewing one more, and if that doesn't work out, we may need to regroup. So I don't know quite what that means, but we'll see.
Well, whoever it is, we'll become good friends, but I'm sure.
So,
And then my only other thing, I guess, to ask for, more guidance with this is, I know that we're saying, in this, which I think we chance to put it in previous, with affordable senior and workforce housing, I think that, healthy housing, which is not really a definition that a lot of people use, is a very important thing that we also need to have them focus on, with, maybe hopefully focus on. Where
where
it's,
it's sustainable.
no, it's not sustainable, so by healthy housing, I mean like, if a housing, when something is being built, a new project is being built, that it's it's meeting certain health, like, obviously there's an inspection, but there's certain health codes that don't go in line with housing, like it does with like food or anything like that. Judith Karpova actually does housing inspections on the ECC, and she sent me this great like 80-page review from someone, so it should took me a very long time to digest and get through.
So
but
it's
about
to
how some-
encourage.
it's to encourage making sure that there's updates and inspections on housing, that someone's not building all of these housing apartments and then they're ignoring potential mold problems or air quality control problems and things like that. So I just wasn't sure how to put that in, because I know it's not a big definition around from people.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I know it's a hard one, but a newer term. to
This
kind
is
of try to
really well
digest.
done, by the way. And I know you're giving Michael the
Yeah.
credit, but you had the idea for it, so both of you, thank you. I think I can help you to sort of clean it up. It doesn't need much.
Yeah.
It just needs a little bit more, and I think we did a lot tonight, so I think we could probably get this together for adoption at the April meeting.
Yeah, I can definitely make this and bring it back to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe the healthy housing and like the like air quality.
Let me
things
do a
like that,
little
I think that
more
should be something
research
that
on
they
it,
can
see if there
research
might
and
be
get
some kind of
passed.
definition of it out there, because I know what you're talking about. Students gave me a lot of info too.
Is that only new construction or it's not?
No, it's existing, like, there's existing ones. So what happened was she had gone into someone who had health issues that became health issues because of the apartment that they were in, and quality not being, because they didn't find specifically holes inside the wall, but there was a leak that caused sheetrock dust to leak, caused this woman to like now lose her job and is now homeless because all of this on this side of the third, all of these like crumbling and domino effect of things from just, if they had simply listened and done a deeper study and made sure that it was like structurally the air quality was sound, that it would have all been taken care of and probably wouldn't have had to quit school and move job and go homeless.
It's a fine line, because we
Yeah.
can't insist on anything above building code.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So it's just like, yeah.
We
so
can
that might-
recommend, but we can't,
So maybe that might be their first pass, then maybe, that's something that is.
Well, and that's why I was
Maybe
asking about
they do,
sustainable, and that's probably the wrong word, but it's.
Yeah, it's just, it's not the.
Construction
exact-
methods.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I could almost see a property being, a healthy house certified,
Yeah, that's,
something
yeah.
like that, that would give it a different designation.
Wouldn't
that maybe-
surprise me if California I know California has set some designations for housing, new housing, of how it can be built. That's in their building code.
That could be something like somebody with compromised health, or somebody who's very health conscious would search out those properties. People could,
Yeah.
charge a premium for them, or attract a, type of, health conscious person they were looking for without making it a requirement of the building code.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
What about a pamphlet of some sort that can give someone a direction as to where they can research this and have the building department do that out with the building?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, something along those.
The housing commission definitely do that.
Yeah, the housing commission can definitely be like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking, that it was
I
more of
mean,
a task. for them
Right
to
outside their
research.
office, they have, with all the forms and things, we could have pamphlets there, here.
Or, as you're looking for a property, how to identify
Yeah.
a healthy property
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah,
Guidance.
exactly, or if there's something that
Yeah.
could be like, obviously like being like type, but we know like some things like asbestos certain things, but there's so many other things that like people don't realize could fall under and end up being detrimental to your health that just get overlooked.
Yeah.
In previous housing.
Well, nice job, both of you. Thank you. Michael, round two here, campground law. Michael did some work, and I apologize. I thought I had printed it in color, and then when I went to grab it out of the printer, it was not in color. So it's hard to tell where the changes were made. Maybe I don't know if you want to put it up on the screen, Michael, or up to you.
I don't know if we, so I guess I'll just do an overview and people can look at it on their own. So the background on this is, I remember public comment section, when we're talking about the short-term transient rental. A lot of people were concerned because they've been renting out non-traditional structures, either campers, yurts, tenter was mentioned. And there were concerns because people had established businesses, and that people were very clear that, that the market was kind of driving the standards of it, because obviously if you don't have a nice camper, people aren't going to want to rent it. And people put a lot of time and effort and were relying on supplemental income. Obviously, there are concerns about public safety from a building code, fire code perspective. So the discussion that I remember was that that would be tabled and those structures could be covered under modifications to the campground law. And I'm actually less concerned about Enter. I think that's another can of worms, but I've had multiple people come up to me that had been renting out recreational vehicles or
Yeah,
similar things. And I think there are ways that we can cover those in a way that, you know, whatever kind of structure we need to put around it to make sure that people are, you know, have some kind of solution for taking care of, you know, human waste, that they're, you know, potable water, et cetera, et cetera. I think we should find a way to accommodate those people, because I know that was something that a lot of people had expressed concern about. So in looking at the campground law, I think one possible way, which is what I tried to do, was to add another classification, because really we have these two major RV type transient and non-transient classifications. I was thinking if we came up with something that's like a micro campground, it could be, you know, we could limit it to owner occupied, where somebody's on premises, and I don't know if we need to go that way, but we could do that. And just have some real clear guidelines so that there's a permitting process. We can look at the facilities, we can verify that they have a way, like either they're providing access to a functional septic system, or they have a Johnny on the spot that they're, you know, they can document that they've had it pumped after every visitation. I think this is something that's important to people. It's supplemental income that a lot of people were relying on. And if we can find a way of incorporating it, we can do this micro campground or something, and I drastically cut out a lot of the restrictions that only make sense for larger RV parks. But I just wanted to, really what I want to understand or know from the board is whether or not this is something that people are interested in doing, if it's something that there are still concerns about, and if so, is there a way to relay people's concerns?
yeah. Well, my first thought is the county was adamant. We originally left it in our first version of the short-term rental. We kind of did a workaround, and the county came back and said, take it out. And talking to our own code enforcement and fire inspector, they said, take it out. In a campground, transient campground, where people are bringing in their own one, or they're housing it there for a long period of time, and they're coming and going and staying there, it's a different situation because it's a commercial use. I'm really reluctant to get into somebody parks a camper in their backyard and they're renting it out, because it's the fire and safety situation is just, it's difficult. And, you know, we heard it loud and clear. I know people want to do it. I'm more inclined to go deal with the tenter people, because that I do hear can be done safely in an environment that is not imposing on neighbors. I'm really a little concerned that we're going to open the door that we don't really want to go down and say, you already say you can't camp greater than 30 days except on your own property, right? I don't know.
What would the fundamental difference between a platform tent and, I'm asking this honestly, a platform tent and a camper?
Well, I'm not thinking of a platform tent of somebody can just pitch a tent in their backyard and rent it out. I'm thinking of tenter where somebody is doing a tenting campground,
Right.
where they have multiple platform sites. What I've heard essentially is access from a fire access. When you're in a camper, yes, they're rated when they're built, but if the board allows me, I know Charlie is a camper, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe you can give me some information on what a camper goes through in terms of fire inspection. And if you can or don't want to, I'm okay with that. But
all I know is certified from the factory. Mine has an emergency window in the bedroom and a door to get out. That's it.
yeah,
The door is not in the bedroom.
yeah.
So I think if it went up, it's going up quick.
Yeah.
We're not gonna get out to the bedroom.
I would say one of the things that we heard loud and clear from the public was, it wasn't like, you know, there's RV share sites where, you know, if you have a camper, somebody can rent a camper, you know, for a week. I've done it myself. But what we were finding was literally on the Airbnb. Somebody was renting out a boat fuselage on a trailer bed in their backyard. They were renting out a tree house. They have a 75 or a 50-year-old Airstream, that's been very nicely converted. But these things are going to have, what we boiled it down to was they're going to go through the exact same building department code that a house is going to go through, and they're never going to pass it to be safe enough. And it's people doing, again, I love the idea of very creative, very artistic and things like that. But it came right down to public health and safety. There was too many variables on these things. And
It's a dwelling.
And the county recommended we stay away.
The campground itself is, like I said, it's a business, it's a transient business.
It's regulated by the Department of Health.
Yeah, the Department of Health inspects the facilities, the communal facilities. I'm sure when you park your camper on an RV parking lot, you probably are signing some sort of form that you are liable for everything. And I don't even know that our campgrounds actually rent campers. I think it's a transient, you bring your own. There are there's some permanent, like smaller cabins that they do rent out there. There's like 6 of them. I'm just thinking of the one. Oh, okay.
But I think you're absolutely right that we need something smaller than the campground designation.
Right.
Somebody who was so inclined, they wanted to put anywhere from 1 to, 10, a dozen, campsites on a piece of property that could accommodate it. As long as it's safe, as long as it was inspected, why not? I know what you're saying though.
Is your idea though that this would be the camper equivalent of a short-term rental? Because we're talking like a mini campground where we have less restrictions. They would still have to go to the county health department. We'd still have to do all that. And I'd be willing to relax some of the restrictions from the major campground. But I don't know if I want to just, work toward almost anybody can put a camper in their backyard and rent it out when they feel like.
Well, I think the point is, we can make it as restricted as we want. If people are willing to go through those restrictions and get the certifications, maybe they have to go to the county Department of Health and say, yeah, this, the camper is not hooked up to anything, and we're giving them use of the spare bathroom that they can access to the house. I just think a lot of people were very concerned about this in the public hearing. I think what I heard was that they were going to find some solution, even if it were part of the second law. I just think change that and not have some kind of accommodation. Even if we're very restricted and we make sure it's still going to have inspections from the code enforcement officer, there can still be requirements that make it very controlled, so it's not a boat fuselage or whatever else. Yeah. But I still think there are reasonable accommodations that somebody has a very tight operation that they've been doing, it's a source of income. They've already invested a lot of money in it. I think it's something we should at least consider and possibly hear from the public again to see if there's anything.
Yeah.
Well, what
Except
I
one, I'm
recall-
sorry, go ahead.
What I recall is that originally we thought, let's try to include alternative structures in the short-term rental law. We also had the idea that because there's a platform tent operations, we thought we want to include that, and that idea also was maybe there's a way we can look at our campground law to include that type of operation, but that's on a smaller level. So they were 2 separate ideas that we had. The county was like, you should not allow people to rent out alternative structures like sheds, converted sheds and things like that. So we struck that from our law, but always kept maintaining that we should look at the campground law to address the platform tent rental operations.
Right.
That was my recollection.
Right.
I didn't go back and watch the meetings, but that was my recollection of what we had stated.
And I believe that is what happened. The mini campground idea is fine of exploring that as a business. See, what I'm concerned is like, you say this is an accessory use for for owner occupied campgrounds. I think there we're getting into a dangerous area. Accessory use is something that's normal and subordinate, and so this would be an owner occupied campground with essentially, the way I'm viewing this is would be somebody who just puts a camp in their backyard. Somebody is running a business and, you know, doesn't have 100 campsites, but only wants to have 5 campsites. I might be more inclined to relax some of the requirements for a you know, a smaller version. And that's what I remember us talking about. But in my mind, it was never about, we tried the alternative structures. We got told, don't do it. We cut it. And once we cut it, I sort of moved away from the thought of doing that on individual residential property. I was always thinking of it as another version, like the people with the tents. They're people that have vacant land that they're renting out to tenter. You know, they're building tent platforms, they're renting out to tenter. That's what's happening in our town. It would be run as a business, not as essentially a home occupation. I think what you're describing is more a home occupation. The people who initially complained, once we adopted the law, I have not heard from a single one of them asking that we, you know, look at it differently. I just think it's as Adam said, it's a health and safety issue to try to do it that small scale. But that's just my opinion.
See if they'll send letters.
Yeah, I mean, I know they want it, but I just don't think it's safe. And I personally don't feel comfortable supporting something that's not safe.
I think there's room between like anybody can throw up a shed and declare it a sleeping space and like an RV that's designed and certified. Inspected. Like I'm not saying the boat example where if somebody just buys a shed, you know, and throws it up, that we should allow all of that. But I think the tents, if we want to just consider tents and platform and formalized businesses, we can do that. I still think there are ways that RVs can be done safely, but
I mean, we also now have the accessory dwelling unit law that somebody could build a small cabin and have.
you can't use it.
You can't use it as.
Can't use it short term. Yeah, but I don't know. I just, if you want to have another structure on your property, I think it should be a permanent structure.
Have you looked into it all, Michael, if any other towns are allow campers in their short-term
Most are
transit
not.
rental?
I
No, short-term rentals.
Okay.
not.
I was gonna say, if like you can find another
Like I said,
town that might have had an example of verbiage and how they did safety and procedures, like potentially.
There's a great app, actually my parents use it all the time, where different farms and vineyards and golf courses have camping hookup. So you can drive your RV onto it, even though it's not a campground. You know, they have a certain designated amount of spaces where you can come and.
But you're bringing your own.
You're bringing, and that's everything you see. Yeah,
There's no hookup on that.
so most of them, you're right, yeah.
There's no hookup for.
Yeah, Stonehouse probably has one behind, they let people park the field behind them and they are on that.
Don't say that too loud because it's not legal.
All right. No, nothing.
Yeah.
And that would be sort of the micro, like a smaller
camp.
version, because right now that's not allowed. under-
Yeah, and I don't know any other municipality who is allowing these. When we first explored it, I will say I did a ton of research on it, looked into fire code, spoke at length with our fire inspector. And he clued me in the fire code, what these units are, where they're covered under. And they're actually covered under motor vehicle law in many cases. But just from a liability standpoint for the town, I think it's dangerous. That's my opinion. But I think we can explore the campground light as I
Yeah.
keep jokingly
Micro
calling it.
campground.
Yeah, micro campground. I like that. Yeah.
Brickyard and things, and I know they have. Or when they have wedding guests, they might have it on how they do
Yeah,
safety
I'm
inspections.
I'm not sure that these, these events are all legally being done.
Yeah, like I said,
So-
they might have, I mean, they're such a large operation that I'm sure that they have some, like, even if I get like a Brickyard, maybe just
Do
like there,
you-
see how they get their inspections done.
Do you? Files are not super organized. I'm saying this publicly. I don't know where to find the referral, the comment from the Ulster County. Planning
Well, I have
Board.
it. on
You
my
have
laptop.
it
Yeah,
organized. Could you send that
absolutely.
to me? I don't remember exactly what they said. And I was looking for it.
Without,
I might be able to bring it up right now.
like, without writing a brand new law or even amending the one we have, because I can remember during public comment, there was really one person that was extraordinarily vocal about a business that they were running. I hadn't heard anything like you said since, but is there any way for somebody to get, for lack of a better term, a variance for one specific occurrence, inside the town, inside either be it a short-term transit rental or.
Not if it, not if it can't, it has to meet, it has to get a C above.
Right.
And they're not
Yeah.
gonna give a camper a C above.
Yeah.
You remember what local law number it was that when we adopted it? Was it 4? No?
It changed, I think. As we were, because we did it from one to the next. I think we adopted other local laws. Proposed that, which
Yeah,
honestly was great.
that's what sticks in mind. I've got them in my computer by local law number.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one had several,
2021
had several different.
was
local
how,
law
when
numbers.
we adopted
That was 1, it was 2, it was 3, it was 2 of 2020.
Oh, you know what? I think I had one under short-term rentals. I think I had a separate category for it.
This reminds me that Fish Solutions said that they will set up a drive for us. They want to know what to call it.
Oh, on the server?
Yeah. Yeah, the town board driving it.
Yeah. We can do that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look. I know what's on here because I'm a pack rabbit in my computer as well. as
It's
in my
it's
computer.
local law number 3 on the Secretary of State's office.
What I thought it was. I didn't see the comments in local law 3, but I was pretty sure I had them here. Oh, here we go. Short-term rentals. I knew I had it in there. No, I'll find it.
But on the first go around, it may not be under 3.
Yeah, that's true, because it
When
started
you
out,
sent it to the county, it was probably a different number.
yeah. I will find it and get it to everybody.
It would be in the minutes, but there was a
I
lot of
know,
public
there was a
hearing.
lot.
I can look too.
Oh, here it is, draft local law, short term 2, Ulster County referral. No, that's the referral itself, not the comments back.
We can come back to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find it. It's not jumping out at me, but I'm sure I have it scanned in. my computer, so. Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute for Charlotte to come back, and then I'll just present this resolution that we wanted to do, and then I have one other topic.
While we're waiting for Charlotte, I know that we're meeting in person now, which is great, or down, but I just want to let you know that the governor did extend
Oh,
I was shocked,
made a liar out of me.
but it's extended till April 15th. So if this new variant they're talking about starts making things go crazy again. You have that option for a little while, hopefully.
And
you
all
won't need it.
provisions, she extended all provisions of it?
Yeah, yeah, well, what's happened is she extended the declaration of the disaster emergency. And as part of the legislation that was passed and that she signed, as long as that is in effect, the open meetings law
Right.
is waived so far as in-person meetings.
Glad I didn't bet the one person that wanted to. I was convinced.
Oh, I checked all day because I knew it would be the day that she had
Yeah,
to do.
I was gonna ask you after the meeting if she did.
And it was like,
didn't
I
have
think,
time to look.
I think it was at 4:08 that she decided
Okay.
that,
Okay,
issued that.
okay, Aaron, if you could pass that over to Charlotte. We have a transfer station employee leaving as of this Saturday. We received a recommendation and an application. Aaron and Jeff and I interviewed this person and would like to extend offer of employment. So I just need to look at the name again. Is it Warren Johnson? Thank you. So I'd like to make a motion that the town board appoint Warren Johnson to the position of transfer station or laborer transfer station, effective April. He's not able to start right away. He said April 4th, but I want to get the start of that. Sunday is the 3rd. So effective April 3rd, 2022, at a rate of $16 an hour for a 32-hour work week.
Is that provisional, Mike?
No, it's laborer, so it's not.
Okay,
Yeah, laborer is just an appointment.
okay.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, to let you know, we are also losing a second person who is moving out of state in April. I am going to put out another Indeed job list. We did consider reaching out to some of the other people, and we did reach out to some of the other people who applied previously, and the ones we reached out to were not available. So we're gonna, Aaron and Jeff and I decided to put out a new ad. So, but I wanted to get somebody in there quickly. This gentleman.
Otherwise, we'll just have one.
Yeah, we don't want to just leave it to one person, and we were very impressed with his. He originally said he couldn't be available for the end of the month, and then he called us back while we were still sitting there talking and said, "I just talked to my current boss, and I can be there earlier." So he's filling in for somebody at his current job, and is sort of doing them a favor. So they worked with him, and he worked with them. So, I didn't say anything there out of that.
You're all good, Mike.
So I have a motion and a second. There's no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Great. I will let him know. Second thing I wanted to bring up, and this is a discussion item. You may or may not have heard the rumors. Pine Ridge Ranch is in the process of being sold. I spoke with the owners yesterday. The closing is scheduled to happen in June. We didn't talk much about more details. They're going to continue to remain open until Memorial Day. There's a lot of chatter out there on social media about other properties in town that are being bought and sold, and we had last year or 2 years ago, we put together the zoning review committee, which met for over 2 years and came back with results. I'd like us to consider, and I just want to get feedback tonight. I will put together a resolution for our April meeting if we want to do it. So we consider a short-term 6-month moratorium on certain types of development. By that, I mean, we would allow 1 and 2 family dwellings on existing parcels to continue to be built. We would allow, and this is all up for discussion, but we would allow lot line adjustments. We would allow potentially minor subdivisions to occur, or some examples I've seen said no subdivision over 2 lots. Some say no over 3 lots. We could determine what we think of that. We have to have an appeals process that goes through the town board where somebody can come to the town board and appeal their specific situation. We hear their case and then we make a determination. I'm concerned with the number of subdivision applications we're seeing at the planning board level. I think we need to maybe take a little break, get these zoning regulations in place. What I'm proposing is a 6-month moratorium with 2 3-month extension possibilities. In that time, I'll work with Aaron, and I want to pick these in chunks, not in one code adoption, because if we do one local law for all the changes, we're going to be 3 years. If we pick, like we did the accessory dwelling, the short-term rental, we pick and we do a bunch of different local laws on different topics, it will get done much faster. It may not sound like it will. We may do 12. SOPAS did this last year. They did 14 or 15 local laws all in one. And some got done in a couple months and some took 5 or 6 months, but they kept making progress. And in the long run, they got a better zoning code out of it. I'm on the fence about it, but I think we're a little, the train roaring down the track, and maybe we got a little, they need to take a little breather and figure it out. So I want some feedback on what people thought.
Well, I know we've been on the ZRC. This was also something the ZRC discussed. And I think it's not just that the ZRC put in a lot of work, and there were significant hours associated with the recommendations that we all came to through consensus. It was a large group, it was a great group. But that was the second group that had provided recommendations. There were recommendations from, I believe, 2017 that also had recommendations. So I think, going around talking to folks in town, one of the biggest concerns I hear, and it's been the last 2 to 3 years as I've been talking to people, is pace of development, is a lot of the concerns about open spaces and agricultural lands, about making sure that there's an effort by the town to ensure zoning code aligns with kind of the overarching goals of the comp plan of the local residents, and that I think the best way to do that, so that we're not constantly chasing our tails, is to take a pause, focus on this holistically. Most importantly, actually talk to more people in town, because I know there are a lot of opinions people have. I think this is a good opportunity for us to open up discussion, have public hearings, get ideas from the public, and figure out exactly what makes sense and what doesn't. So I think it's a good idea.
Charlotte, I'm going to just go around the room and then I know it's a
I'm
surprise,
not-
so I
Yeah,
apologize.
sorry.
It literally came into mind last night. So
Totally fine. I'm not necessarily opposed to a single break, just because I also know that there's been such a heavy load on the planning board, and they do have a lot of open cases right now. It just, anyone who's already applied to do anything, they get processed still. It's not to
well,
put a pause on
we would
theirs,
set
on
the
theirs.
bar of, we could set it a couple ways. We could say any application that is in the process is allowed to continue.
Right.
Or we could say you must have achieved public hearing status, or we could say you must have achieved a negative declaration. These are just examples.
Yeah, okay.
Bear in mind that any person who in application will be noticed, though, that if you choose to continue your application, that the new laws,
Might affect.
if your application is not completed prior to the new laws will, and that's
Potentially
standard
change
moratorium, the new laws. Now, I just want to say, I'm not opposed to development. I'm not trying to stop it. I'm not trying to restrict it. I just think we need to like take a little look at it and think about it. And that's really, we've got some really good suggestions. We got some, and I was on the committee, and there's a number that I didn't agree with what was presented. And I will probably continue to disagree with some of the ones that were presented. That's my opinion. The four of you can make your opinions. But I think in order to give it a look, and just looking at what's going on, and also I just want to say this is not targeting who is buying these properties or anything like that, because I won't abide by any sort of persecution or stigmatizing of who is buying properties, whether that be people from the city or different religions, that.
Yeah, that was another.
No,
concern
that's
of
not
mine,
at
is
all
just
what's
to make sure-
directing
And I
this.
did, it didn't sound like that to me, but I just wanted to make sure that that's not
Um,
the driving force behind this.
And bear in mind that right now today, if we do nothing, any new use on a property is going to go through the planning board process. It's not, anything that has been closed or vacant 5 years or more no longer has a C of O, even if it predated zoning. I confirmed that with the code enforcement officer today. So if somebody buys something that has been vacant for 5 years or more and has not been operating, they still got to go through the whole process with the current code. It's not that they're going to just walk in and immediately start operating. Also, as far as if not for profits or tax exempt organizations buy something, it does not automatically take it off the tax rolls. And I want to stress that because it's the use that dictates it, not the owner of the property. So there's a lot of Facebook fear mongering going on out there. And I fielded a ton of calls today. Kate fielded a ton of calls today. Want to assure people that it's not, it's a lot of people think it's sort of doomsday and the sky is falling. That's not the case. There are still rules that have to be followed. So.
Yeah, I'm not opposed, as long as people, I think, because it is such a process to go through everything, just make sure you start to finish the planning board and if you do any minor subdivision or anything. I think that we should honor those people who have already done their application, paid their application fees, have everything set up. That they, while this is going on, they are still able to go and finish out their process. Like we shouldn't delay them another 6 months when they could have been waiting for their public hearing already for a couple of months.
Right.
I don't think that that's necessarily fair to them. I also got a couple calls over since last night. I've seen some stuff on Facebook. This is someone from the same religious sect that the people who bought Pine Ridge are from. Some of the comments I saw, I was not a fan of. So yeah,
No, I know.
and so just wanted to make sure that I understand that the board is not looking at that as a whole.
And it will
I
go
still
through a
wanted to look
public
at
hearing
that.
process. It has to be referred to the county. It has to be referred to the local planning board. It does not, it is a type 2 action under seeker, so it does not require a seeker review. Well, it gets a seeker review. It is by law, type 2 action, a moratorium. And the county does not favor moratoriums, but if you have a specific purpose in mind, you keep it short and to the point, and they consider 6 months short and to the point because you got to go through a process to get there. They don't like ones that are long. They don't like ones with open-ended extension. If you say a year from now, at most, we're going to have a finalized document ready to go. And we roll up our sleeves and dive into this and start picking them off. And I can write local laws all night long, as much as you guys want them. So,
I'm not opposed to it based on also I respect for the DRC for how much work they put in just so that we have the time to get.
and I think we're hearing it from the public. There's
hearing
concern.
exact- And hearing things from, exactly. I'm totally fine with us taking a pause on things, just wanting to think.
And give our planning board a chance to take their breath too a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. If you have to do like 20 a meeting, like that's a heavy load. So I totally-
There's 18 open applications.
So I, back in the fall of 2021, recommended, I said, I thought we should, when after we did our presentation, DRC donor presentation, I said I would support a moratorium because I thought it would put a fire under the board to actually speed up the process of, of considering and passing the changes. So I support that. I am very opposed to using zoning laws to target specific people or groups. So I do not want to participate in anything like that. These recommendations come from a basis in our current comprehensive plan that took a holistic view of the town, its resources, the value set forth in the comprehensive plan, and what we want to see ensured into the future for the town in terms of resources, and where we would like to see development concentrated. And that is the heart of these recommendations. I would love to see us really work on them. And I do believe that regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's a 200-year-old historic farm that's for sale or something else, I think the idea of having a moratorium is also good for the public and potential developers, because they wouldn't be getting caught up in the middle of a process. It would be very, very clear to everyone what our intention was, and there could be participation, as I've said before, of the public and potential developers or projects to hear and weigh in on the process as it's unfolding.
Yeah, just kind of getting my head wrapped around it. I mean, again, it sounds like we do have to pump brakes to some degree. Just playing devil's advocate and thinking of, some specific, subdivisions, other things that are going on that are in process for everything from planning stages to just at the end. My concern would be either tens or thousands of dollars, in losses and delays and inspections and things like that. I do think to some degree, and again, probably unpopular here, but the market does self-correct to a certain degree. The prices we're seeing in the town are astronomical. I can't see it going on indefinitely the way it is now. But before we do anything, I really would think that, if there's 18 applications in front of the planning board right now, we really would have to do a deep dive into the slate of applications that are there now, to make sure that we're not gonna royally mess somebody up and hurt them while we're trying to insulate the town. My immediate thought though is that the 3-month moratorium with 2 3-month extensions would put us to the end of the year, or a 6-month with 1 extension. I wouldn't want to see us, again, drag it out. And I know that's probably too fast, but again, we're going to
3 months to get and I apologize, 3 months to get the initial done is not, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Just the process alone of once you get started, having public hearings, holding them open, 3 months is useless for the initial. The only reason I'm saying 2-3 months is to give us that window of time. We can choose to cancel it at the end of 6 months if we feel like we're ready. The extension is you have to, when you present your moratorium, you got to tell worst case scenario.
Right.
So we're saying that within 1 year, whatever we've accomplished in 1 year, that's it. We're done with the moratorium. The county, obviously, I'm betting, I shouldn't say obviously, I'm betting the county will come back and recommend 1 extension, and we can decide that. I'm just leaving ourselves that little bit of wiggle room, because I could potentially, I said this Opus did 15, I made that number up, but it was somewhere in that number. I could potentially see us doing 20 or 25 local laws, because we break it down by subsection of the zoning code and subsection of the subdivision, and then there'll be one, obviously, that's the, all of the above, every little change here and there. There's a lot of work in that document, and I've read it all. I was a part of it for most of the period. I did sort of drop off toward the end, But I have a really good feel for what was done and what we should and shouldn't group together.
Right.
I think I have a good sense of what will be controversial and what won't be, and maybe I'll be surprised, but, and as far as, we can say any application that has been made to the planning board and, by such and such a date is allowed to continue. So we're not stopping anybody from there. We have the appeals process. If somebody can come in and they have to show that they've expended a certain amount of money, prove to us as the town board they have, we have the ability to hear their unique case and say, okay, go ahead. That's happened in a number of moratoriums in the town. I think the 6 months for the initial is 3 months just is a waste of time. We're not going to accomplish anything in 3 months. That's just my feeling. What's the feeling of in terms of what we would, I don't want to use the word grandfather in, but what we would allow? Obviously, single family building permits, we don't want to hurt housing. If somebody's building a single family house on an approved parcel already, I would even say a 2-family. I don't know if we want to allow multifamily on an approved parcel. We could say anything under the EEO application, the economic enterprise overlay, because that's a rehab or refurbish. We can exempt all of those from it.
Well, or should we say any that have been already submitted to the EEO process? If it's already been submitted or going to.
Well, we could say anyone to the EEO, because to get there, bear in mind, the town board has the ability to say yes or no to an EEO application with no reasoning. We can get an application and just say, no, we're not going to consider it. So I would like to say all EEO applications, because we still don't have an application from the granary. That's not a project I would want to stop.
Is that not considered to have started though?
No, because we don't have an application for them. They've talked to us, but it's not considered started until we have the application in hand. We do not have an application in hand. So, whereas
I think
Walnut Brook is we have an application in hand.
I think any accessory use should be.
Accessory uses, yeah, obviously, we don't want to stop anybody putting up a shed or a swimming pool or,
I don't know about the multifamily.
That's a tough one, because then you start saying that we have zero inventory for people. Somebody wants to put up a house that 3-unit house.
yeah,
We didn't make.
But then-
any changes.
no, we didn't. And all this is just open for further thought, because I realize I'm throwing this at you blindly tonight.
I think that
I don't need answers tonight, but I'm just sort of trying to get a rough idea of where to start from. I found a couple really good examples online from New York State. It's how I write my laws. I read it 10 or 15 different examples, and I borrow and mold, and
so the moratorium is not a local law.
it is a local law. It's adopted by local law. It is a local law process. That's what I was saying. It's a type 2 seeker action, so no further seeker is necessary. Does require referral to the county planning board, does require public hearing, does require referral to the local planning board. So even if we did it in April, the earliest we could put it into practice is sometime in May, because it wouldn't get to the county planning board until their May meeting. It might get to our local planning board for their April meeting, depending on if we adopted at our April meeting or not. So the earliest we could adopt it is May. That would play us out until November with the 6 months, and then 2-3 month extensions, possibly. And I kind of want to hear what people have to say. There's a lot of fear out there, but I want to hear both sides. Maybe we hear the public hearing and we go, okay, we don't really need to do this. We can still work on the laws, getting them done. But I think some of the changes, like creating what was it, PL10 and A10. That's a big change.
Yeah, it's a big.
And that's gonna be, some people are gonna wrap their heads around it and love it. Some people are gonna say, oh, I hate it. And we're gonna really wanna hear the public before we do that. And a lot of the code change, not the code, the schedule of use changes, there's some significant changes proposed there. Yeah, some of them won't be controversial at all, and others will be very controversial. So having that, I'm not a fan of moratoriums, and I
I
will.
know you're
admit,
not, because I proposed it.
Yeah, I've resisted it, but looking at the climate we're in now, I think it's not a bad idea. But I want to be short. I want to be decisive, that we do something with that period of time. We don't just drag our feet. And you know, it may mean some special board meetings that we dedicate just to local laws. It's going to be some hard work because we got a lot going on top of that.
Yeah, it's gonna be budget time and that.
Yep. But let's get it done. So, is the general consensus I should at least put something together and
Yes.
go from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds, the general consensus is we want to take care of.
Let me try to bring a draft to you at the 31st meeting,
Okay.
since we have that window.
Yeah.
And I'll try to bring a draft to you at that meeting and we can sort of pick a little
Okay.
bit.
But the general consensus was that we like the shorter time frame, and we want to take care of existing applicants.
Mhm.
And that, you know, thinking about, I think the exemptions that you mentioned are.
What's your feeling on subdivision? Should we set a number of lots, or should we say all minor subdivisions can continue?
Isn't there something in the law that a major subdivision is kind of like a minor subdivision?
No.
Like if
that's-
someone subdivided more than once within a time frame, it becomes a major.
Well, it's reviewed under the status of the previous subdivision. So yes, that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not that it becomes, it's, if it was a major subdivision. Part of what we're doing is fixing this. I believe, and it's my opinion only, that it's misinterpreted right now. And I still say it could have been fixed with one word, but I was shot down on that one. So I'll defer to the ZRC, and I'll fight my battle when that one comes up. Because I don't necessarily agree with the suggested change, but that's Mike Baden's opinion. But in answer to that is, somebody could come to the town board, present their case of, hey, what I'm doing is really a lot line adjustment, and now it's classified as a major subdivision. We look at their situation and we go, and there's no fee for that because we're not employing consultants. It's us. They're coming to us. We're looking at their unique situation, and we can give them an exemption from the moratorium. We have to, by law, we have to have that ability in the moratorium code. You have to have a relief situation. We could designate it to the ZBA, but what I've read is it's normally taken on by the town, the legislative board. And since they're the ones initiating the moratorium, they're the better suited to review these relief from the law.
I mean, I think 2 or less lots definitely seems like.
Yeah, well, you can't have a 1-lot subdivision, so it's a 2-lot subdivision. I think personally, most 3-lot subdivisions are no impact. When you get into 4, maybe there's an impact. In some cases, there's not. But I don't know if we want to do it just by a number, or we want to say major, minor. It's not something we have to decide this moment. I'm just sort of throwing the parameters out for you to think about of what would be the dividing line of what's allowed to continue. We definitely don't want to stop accessory building permits. If somebody wants to build a deck, somebody wants to build a shed, they can do that. Fences are another story, but because I know they're very controversial. But anyway, that's sort of my opinion, that accessory uses, building permits for accessory are allowed. This would be the large subdivisions, the large businesses. And, you know, and we'd have that relief. You know, Lucky Petroleum, for example, is refurbishing their place. They're already in process, so they would be exempt, but what they're doing is, it's a good project. They're upgrading and making it into a different, you know, they're fixing it up. It's kind of what we want them to do. So they could come to us and present a request and we can approve it. But if we say everything in front of the planning board is allowed to continue, then they would be able to continue. There were, for you two, and Michael was involved, there's a lot of properties that we're looking at changing zone, not a lot, some changing zoning designation. Turning some 5-acre and 3-acre parcels into 10-acre zoning. Many of them are already restricted within their own land, easements and those types of things.
We're also looking at some of the bigger acreage going to smaller acreage.
Right.
There's a lot of,
We're working both ways.
Yeah.
Some places that are 5, we're looking on, why is this 5?
yeah,
So it works both ways.
it works both ways.
Okay, well, I didn't hear anybody say, no, don't do it. So I'll get something together. I will try to get it, bring it to us on that 31st meeting, which is now getting longer and longer by the minute, but that's okay. And
These are later, so.
yeah, we'll get going through it. So that's all I have. Yes, executive session. So Mary Lou, do you have any comment on the moratorium?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for coming.
I have lots of things rolling around in my brain right now, and I just want to process them and then we'll talk.
Understood. Understood. I realize I threw you a curve as well as everybody else,
You certainly did.
because you and I have spoken often. Yeah, it's not locked.
Oh, for executive.
Yeah, for executive
Yeah.
session, I was saying, so that no one kind of, no one can.
Yeah.
We're gonna hide outside the door.
I know I've always been opposed to moratoriums and have said it loud and clear, and here I'm the one presenting it, but I think it might be useful. So, okay, I'm going to ask that we enter into executive session at 10 p.m. Exactly. For the purpose of discussion of information relating to the current or future investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense which would imperil effective law enforcement if disclosed. I know I had said I had a second item, but I'm not. So we'll just do this.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Hang on a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, thank you. I'll let you know. Let me stop the meeting here.
Can we, does Friday work? Does Friday work? Does Friday
Yeah.
work?
That's
Work.
fine with me.
At 1, is that better?
It doesn't matter to me at one point.